Welcome to the Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out, thanks and appreciation to Giuseppe Montesano, Twine to Triangle, Mitch Kennedy, Original D-Rose, Rod, The Name's Burley, Todd Wazzle, Jason Hornsby, Christoph Fournier, Flamboyant Telescope, J Mels 24, Udamento, M Iron 26, Endless, Flat Earth Sage, Goldie McKiernan, Retro Built, More Books, Cannabear, Bogey, Michael Kahn, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Mel B Styles, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Rob W, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show. I've strictly speaking had this computer running live for an hour and 10 minutes now. Obviously not to an audience, but it just means that all of last week I was like, I'd started an hour early each day so that if I did have a failure, I could quickly see if I could resolve the problem and then start again. But that meant endless amount of work, putting out multiple videos, because obviously you then have to remux the video that's failed, publish it, restart the live show, potentially unlist the old live show if it's only gone out for 2 or 3 minutes. You know, it just created a lot of work. So I thought, okay, well, if I'm going to strap that onto the end of my day preemptively, I might as well start an hour extra early. So I'm already starting an hour early. So I started 2 hours early today. I thought, before I even start recording, I'm going to run the computer live, see if it falls over. And if it can run for an hour live before I even hit record, then I'm obviously a lot more confident that it'll run all the way through the live show. That's the idea. So anyway, so I'm now starting 2 hours early. But there we go.
When is it going to be? You just come and start the show and not have to worry about all these things. Sounds like you do an awful lot of work, Nathan.
I do an awful lot of work, but that's fine. The show is a complicated show, and this computer's a very high-powered, complicated computer that has upped the game of the show. So, you know, several people have commented that they like the background footage of Minecraft or Fortnite or whatever it is that I put up, because it's more interesting than what I've got on screen now, which just flashes by. I will update this at some point, the stills that go by in G+. I'll update those. I intended to do them this weekend, I just didn't get around to it. But in any event, it's up the game of the show, and it's come with, you know, a ton of work. Well, you know, if I'd have had the choice, would I have done that? No. But at the end, as long as it functions and keeps the show running at a higher standard than it was, let's not forget. It's not like, well, you can go, oh, well, the show was running perfectly fine, and then all this new computer's done has been to your detriment. Well, no, it's been a blessing and a curse. A lot of work I can cope with. You know what I mean? The show has always been a lot of work. So with the fact that it's been consuming me for the last 8 months.
Yeah, but not getting up 2 hours and doing 2 hours
that's
extra
just the way it goes.
Morning.
Well, that's just the way it goes for the now. Eventually, it'll reach a point where I'm like, no, I'm confident that I don't need to sit and test it for an hour before I even start recording the live show, which is an hour before the show. You know, I'll get to a point where I'm happy and that it won't fall over, and then I'll just, you know, lob off at least an hour of those extra 2 hours, and perhaps start live streaming while I'm actually recording. You know, temporarily. In other words, you know, notch it down one in terms of the precautions I'm taking, and hopefully it'll eventually. The ideal is that you just turn it on and go, right? And it takes me 25 minutes, 30 minutes maybe to set up. Sometimes a little bit longer if something doesn't work properly. But, you know, that time gets ever longer with things that fail. Anyway, this looks, I'm confident. Like I say, it's been running for an hour and 12 minutes live. Connected fine.
All right.
There we go. There's a good chance it'll fall over in the next 5 minutes.
Whoa, wait a second. I thought you said you were confident. Let's not go there.
Yeah, as soon as I say that, it falls over. I can spend an entire weekend running through stress tests, and have done for the last 8 months, and then get to Monday morning, get it started, and then it'll fall over 10 minutes into the live show.
Well,
That said, over the last few days, it's been blisteringly hot here, which is good because it means I can test the computer at the extremes. In other words, at the worst possible scenario with a passive computer, it's reliant on the ambient temperature. So therefore, if I've got the highest possible ambient temperature or close to it, I can see where it falls over then, and it did. So it's like, well, I'm now pushing it to the extremes of where it will survive in extreme circumstances, which is good. So again, I'm getting ever confident. By the time I get 100% confident, it'll be time to replace it.
speaking of the heat, I remember one time when I didn't have an adequately cooled down place. I had AC, but it wasn't like keeping up. And if I would game in those summer days, oh man, that computer would just, I don't know. It's like a heater. Those computers sometimes when you're gaming in them, right?
Yeah, well, it's like that for just doing the show on this computer. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's pulling a lot of power and it chucks out a lot of heat.
But I hear you guys in the UK have like really expensive hydro, or I mean electricity. We call them hydro in Niagara Falls.
Yes, very. I'm in debt quite
Yeah, because
considerably to the electricity company currently. I just try and ignore it. The solution is to earn more money. Well, in for me, that just means e-beg more. Well, people get tired of hearing it. So I've just gone, okay, fine, I'm just going to go further and further into debt for electricity. It's just the way it is. And half the country, a good chunk of the country is in the exact same position, just going further and further into debt to their electricity supplier. There we go. That's life at the moment for people in the UK.
yeah, it kind of seems so real to me. I'm like, oh wow. I only know this because my moderator B is a Buzz. He's from the UK. And he made me privy to this, and I'm like, oh wow, that's quite something.
Yeah, I've probably spent an absolute fortune running the computer at its maximum capacity to test it. Because obviously you've just got to test it at its extremes, which is basically everything inside it pulling the most amount of power it can pull for a prolonged period. Well, you can imagine what that does to my electricity bill. It's not good, especially when I've been doing it for 8 straight months. So yeah. Anyway, I won't moan about it. I don't want this show to be constant moans about everything because I'm smiling while I do it. I watched a Thomas Sheridan's video today, and he was moaning about people in the school system, or parents of kids in the school system, and how they can deal with various different pride aspects that have been introduced to their schools, right? And he's got all of these various different means and methodologies of overcoming these problems. And my wife and I homeschool. And one of the things I put in the comments was just homeschool. And under it was like, not everyone can do that. And I'm like, no, not everyone can do that isn't really an answer. Everybody has the option to do that. But it requires quite a lot of sacrifice. Yeah, you're not gonna have time to do a 9 to 5 job if you're homeschooling your kids. What does that mean? Well, it means you've got to work part time. Or in my case, lean more on my wife while I do more and more work for YouTube. She's not glaring at me horribly at the moment, so I think I'm in the clear. Anyway, but yeah, the point is you can, but you just have to make quite a lot of sacrifices, and none of them are to your benefit. In other words, all of the sacrifices are, in this instance, to my wife and I's detriment. But whose benefit are they for? Well, for our kids. That's who benefits. You're like, right, so we'll have less money, less time, more stress, kids to deal with all day, a lot of things that people would prefer not to have to deal with all day. You go, okay, well, number one, being with the kids all day is actually a plus for me, unlike a lot of people who would rather ferry their kids off to school because they can't deal with them all day. Now, you might say fair enough, but me, I want to be around my kids. I like it. But it means you're going to have less money, less time, all the rest of those things. So for all it's like same with, I made the exact same decision with work. Do you want more time and less money, or more money and less time? You make that decision, and the same can be made, but on your kids' behalf, who can't make that decision, can they? So you got to say, okay, well, it's going to be again to our detriment in terms of time and finances, but to our kids' benefit and ours, because we get to see them growing up all day, every day. Wonderful. Really, really nice.
Sounds good.
But yeah, you're going to have to make sacrifices. It's going to cost you more money. And you're going to have
And
less means of being able to earn it.
and I was gonna add something to it too. You ever see the movie Idiocracy?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, remember how like the reason why in that movie the population gets dumber and dumber is because they say the dumber people have kids because they don't plan ahead and think. You know what I mean? But yet life still goes on, right? Like even if you have kids, I hear a lot of parents when they have kids that think, oh wow, how is this going to work? Yet they have kids and it does work, right? Life does go on. you
Yes,
know.
because there's institutions you can ferry them to while you almost cope with your 9 to 5 life. So for whatever obscure reason, the hours of schooling are inconvenient for your average person who works, aren't they? Yeah? Well, that's obviously going to be a bummer if you just want to work a 9 to 5. In other words, no matter which way you dice it, you're going to be slightly screwed if you're putting your kids in school or not. It's going to affect your work life. Most people manage to work around that and still do their 9 to 5 slog. Someone else picks up the kids or whatever. But ultimately speaking, it's going to have an effect on your life. Well, if it's going to have a minor impact, and then you hear all the, like I said about this Thomas Sheridan video, all the other ancillary, is that the right word? Ancillary impacts on your life that you'll have anyway if you put them in school. You're like, well, you just weigh up the benefits and pros and cons and go, well, at least we did. And go, yeah, the pros sit more on the homeschool side than they do on the state education side. If we were super rich, I'd just put them both in a private school. They'd still have heliocentric indoctrination, but to a lesser extent with more valuable lessons. But it just costs too much. They're like, okay, well, we can afford a certain amount of private lessons, which we do put them in, both of them. Which again, we've got less means to pay for, but you just go, well, it just means we can't go out. We don't drink, don't do a great deal, don't go out very often, don't go on holidays at the moment. When we do, they're like cheap holidays in the UK, driving distance, things like that. When you're like people who like their foreign holidays and expensive cars and nice posh food and nights out, well, for us, we give all of that up. For most people, that's too much. Like, you're telling me I can't go
Yeah,
out to a restaurant ever? No, unfortunately not. A friend asked me out for a meal, bearing in mind this guy had paid for me multiple times, right? And I was like, look, I'm just feeling bad. I've got to eventually pay for us to go out. I've got to fit the bill once, at least. So I was like, can we go out somewhere cheap, like for a pizza? And it ended up we went out for a curry. I'm like, oh no, this is more expensive than I'd planned. So I had to go cap in hand to my wife and go, look, I've spent more money than I intended. And you're like, it wasn't even a great deal of money, but it just comes down to it when you're on a bit of a knife edge where you just have to make those sacrifices. Just like, no, we just have to be disciplined and say, no, we just can't afford to go out. And like I say, for most people, that is unacceptable to them. They can't bear that sort of life. I smile because it's like, what do I get in return? What, my kids? I sit around in some of the groups, especially in the nursery groups, which are now starting to end because my youngest is a bit too old. But in those groups, I sit around talking to the grandparents, right, who are dealing with the kids while the parents are at work. And they would say the same thing to me multiple times. I wish if I had my time again, I'd spend more of my time watching them grow up. I just seem to have missed it all. One of them was like, I got a really nice house, and all I seemed to do all day was clean it and work. And then the kids were all grown up, and now they've both gone, and they get to enjoy the grandkids while the parents are out working. There's me, probably one of the youngest there, apart from some very young single mothers, admittedly, in this crash group. But I'm one of the younger ones because it's all the grandparents there. And you're like, it's just like, I want this bit. This bit's good. This bit's fun. I'm running around on a tricycle. I'm 6'2". You know what I mean? This is fun. Why not?
That's a social contract, though. It's what you get for paying for a generation, right? When you become grandparents, you get the fun part. Your kids, like I'm lucky enough to my wife is able to stay home, and I miss that part of it. That's why I'm looking forward to the grandkids. I get to do that with them.
I totally empathise and I completely get it, but I want that bit. And like I said in the comment on in that Thomas Sheridan video, I feel it's worth every bit of sacrifice. Yeah, I was asking my wife what it's like. Why have I been up at 6 a.m. and finishing at 3 a.m. each day? Why am I getting 3 or 4 hours sleep a night? What's going on? Why am I having to work so hard? And then I rack my brain back to all the stuff I blocked out last week in a horrendous week. And I'm like, that's just how it is sometimes. For what? Well, to scrape by. You just have to do a lot of work sometimes to scrape by. And is it worth it? Yeah, because if they got to 10, 12, 15, I'm like, where's the time gone? You're like, yeah, that little period of about 10 or 15 years, like the 10 or 15 years previous, just disappears. It just vanishes. They're like, well, I'm not particularly in a position to have any more kids as much as I'd love to. We're just not rich enough and we haven't got enough space. They're like, okay, so this bit's the bit I've got to cherish. I'm damn sure I'm going to then. If it means sacrifice, that's so be it. And even with the demands to scrape by on YouTube, I'm still managing to do it. You know, who's going to moan when you're dead? Sleepless nights, so what? This is a payoff as well, this bit of my day. So there's obviously the moments with my wife that come first. And obviously the kids have just spoken about. But this is right up there, right now, this bit. Doing the show itself. So it's worth getting up, or the 2 hours prior, 2 hours, 20 minutes, 2 hours, 30 minutes before the show actually goes out live, to do it. So that this bit now, as I'm glancing and seeing, yep, still connected live. If this was broadcasting, everything could be kosher. Right? Hour and a half into live streaming, just under. I'm like, great. So that means that this can run smoothly, this conversation right now, which is being recorded. No, it's not reaching anybody live. And that's been for a very short period of time that it's been recording. But ultimately, it means that I get to enjoy this bit. And this is the bit I actually love. Nobody likes editing. Nobody likes setting up live streaming software. Nobody likes pissing around with OBS. None of that bit's fun, obviously, unless you're a complete nerd. Maybe it's fun for you, but not for me, though. It's all just a means to an end. Well, what's the end? This bit. And occasionally you get some glorious moments, which I'll never forget, like last week with Matthew. Again, the whole sleepless nights, endless nights pissing around with the computer was worth it because the entire, well, with the exception of me forgetting to press record halfway through the live stream, but the entire live stream and recorded bit with Matthew Learns with endless confessions in it, loads of meat left on that bone for me to go and edit. That was all worth it. You know, that's the payoff for me. Not necessarily even, you know, the cash that well, not that there's a load of cash that came with it, but you know what I'm getting at. If that happened to have had like a bazillion super chats on that show, which it didn't, it'd be like, no, even more reward is the fact that, you know, we are on the right side of this argument. And when we win big, there's a certain special feeling that I get, and I'm certain the audience relates to that. There's a euphoric feeling I got when I was watching back that Matthew Learns video, when it's talking about how flat it must be and how it can't be a globe. And I'm grabbing quotes left, right, and centre like I was editing clips left, right, and centre last week. You're like, this is majestic. And all the panel, no offence to you, but while you're scratching your heads for motive of an individual. It's like, man, there's a much, much more wider reaching implications to the things this man's saying based on who he is and what he represents, as opposed to what he is as an individual, human being. The individual that Matthew Learns is, in terms of his motivation or lack of ability to reconcile cognitive dissonance, is almost irrelevant. Who cares? But why is he? He's a university lecturer describing, as we describe, with a bit of pushback, how flat Earth must be and how incapable of a measurement it is if it's sphere-shaped. So, you know, those things to me were the payoff of last week. Don't get me wrong, it'd be great if I got millions out of it too, but that's unlikely. Anyway, smash the PayPal link if you're listening. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say the certainty of the end of the discussion is what it shows.
Yeah, it's a conclusion. At the point that your opponent's telling you how flat it is, it's like, no, all the times that we've said globe killer or this is the end of the debate with this point or whatever. No. At the point that your opponent can do nothing but give you your rebuttals back to you, that's when you have actually won. And that's what it represented to me. He's just telling us how flat it is, and he's still saying, yeah, I still want to believe it's a globe, but I understand how flat it must be. The Earth, the surface of Earth that you're measuring. He's telling us all this, and how if you're measuring it as you measure it, then it can't work with a globe. Like, yeah, this is that point. The celestial navigation argument is that point in this discussion. What, 8 years in for me? It's been a long time coming. It's pretty euphoric.
Yeah, well, it ain't just that. Nothing works with the globe.
No,
absolutely nothing.
We've got
Works
10th
with
Man
the globe.
to thank for that, as he's just joined us. We're just not necessarily giving you credit, but singing your praises in terms of the elevation angle argument, 10th. Can you hear us before we carry on? Is your mic working?
Yeah. Good morning. Good to be
Good morning.
back.
Yeah, good morning, first of all. That is the be-all and end-all of this discussion. In Flat Earth, it's the pinnacle of discussion, because your opponent can only concede how flat Earth must be and how much of a failure it would be, celestial navigation would be, to place it on a spherical surface. So it's credit to you, because you're the one that's unearthed it and then shined it up, polished it, presented it to all of us, so we can replicate that shiny little diamond. So it's a majestic argument. It really is. And Matthew learns over last week. Hopefully you were listening in, 10th. It's the perfect example of that. There's been others, but that's the best one.
Yeah, I was I took a week off because I had to go back to California and take care of my elderly parents. And I caught most of the shows, parts of some, but I did get Matthew's falling from the perch of mathematics, so to speak, show. And yeah, pretty amazing. You could say one thing and then a minute later say the opposite and think you're still okay.
Actually, on this subject, John, based on what I just said, I'm going to tell you what the title of the video. This is a members only video at the moment, but based on the fact that I was swearing so much, I went back and edited it all out from the live show so I could re-release it in a more clean format, and that took hours because it was a full live show. It was the biggest edited video I've ever done, with the iPad constantly turning itself down. Anyway, that aside, the title I gave that was Flat Earth Wins. That's the name of the title of the video.
I couldn't catch the after shows, obviously. So what little I got or parts I got was from the actual live show. So what was that 1907? I think you said that show.
The after show came out yesterday on the second channel for members of the public.
Oh, that's 1907, correct?
Yeah, there's a lot of swearing in it. I'll warn you in advance before you smash the share button when you get to something exciting. But I have also edited that down to a video called University Teacher Puts His Job on the Line for a Curved 90-Degree Angle. That's already, wow, that's already had over 1,000 views in 24 hours. Okay, good, that's good. That's obviously, people like that video, so check that out if you haven't already. University Teacher Puts His Job on the Line.
Well, that's a great title.
Well, just think about it. A university professor has put his job on the line betting against something that every single third grader in the world knows.
Yeah, that title is fantastic. And what John just said is mind-numbing to think about, that you have a university teacher. I mean, when I first looked at those celestial navigation books, I kept seeing this 90. I'm going, how in the world are they getting 90 on the curved surface? And then I see the pictures and I see the diagrams, and then I read not the small print, but the admission, excuse me, the admission that all the angles are derived from the equatorial plane. And I go, well, who in the world has an elevator down the hill to take a sextant measurement? I mean, that show that you did where Danny Faulkner is taking angles from hell, that's the equatorial plane in their globe. And it's like, something's wrong here. So here you got university teacher, can't even get a 90, and anyone looking at it, it just happened to be me saying, something's wrong here. This is not a 90.
Well, he kept on trying to twist his words into saying you could get an angle. to a 90-degree angle to a curve.
Yeah, that's where all the
And I-
swearing was. So he got called a shyster and a CU. You don't need to know the rest. Because
Well,
I
wait a
got
minute.
so angry with him because we're right in the middle of debating about something he's cited. So he sent us this picture of these angles that are alluding to be 90 on the surface, marked ground position without a 90 being there. So he's trapped because he can't argue that it is 90 when it isn't. But he's arguing that you can. He thinks we haven't been doing this long enough. So long before the elevation angle measurement came up, the position of being able to acquire a 90 from from a tangent. In other words, you put a straight line with a 90 on it. So you've got, let's say it's sort of intersecting it. Yeah, like a T, an upside down T with 90s on either side of the vertical upright. Well, if you just plonk a sphere and put those two 90 points at any point on the sphere, they go, there you go. We've got 90. Or you do two spheres next to each other and go at the meeting tangent points on these two spheres. You've got an intersecting line that's a tangent for both of them, and you can have a line that intersects that, and that will give you 4 90s for each of the two tangents on each side of the two circles. You're like, okay, yeah, I saw all this in 2016, 2017 from the Rumpus. It's like for him to argue about having physical geometry based on tangents. Yeah, we've done all this. So where he's trying to take us is to clever dick again. He's trying to be a clever dick by saying, no, look, if I draw a tangent line in this version of a sphere that's got sod all to do with ground positions and stars that we're debating about with a specific diagram he has cited, right? Then look, I've got a 90 to the tangent. It's like, yeah, you weren't going to get there though. And every time he tried, I got really cross with him because I knew exactly where he was going. But he got shut down by me and Adam, who both had the same bitter taste in our mouth as he tried to do it. It's like, no, we're debating about this diagram with ground positions and celestial navigation as the topic. You want to take us to geometric spheres and tangents to them. It's like, no, we're debating about celestial navigation and you're never going to get us there. But you will get called the C word by me repeatedly in my fury for what he was trying to do. Were you around when that? Because
Well,
you
I was
disappeared
trying to
halfway
help
through,
him.
John. Were you there when that happened?
Yeah, I was trying to help him. I was trying to say, look, you got to think about what you're saying, and I clarified it for him. I said to a curve. You're talking about to a curve, not from a curve, right?
Oh yeah, that got edited. Let's
And he
play the
said-
video actually. That got edited into the video, so I'll play that out now. It's perfect timing.
Must be
Yeah, I was
misunderstanding
trying
what
to
you're
help him.
asking.
I'll explain again.
uh,
The GP ground position of the star will have 90 below it, as detailed by Harold Jacobi. Do you understand? Yes or no?
Yes.
At the ground position on this ball, it will not be 90 degrees anymore.
Why not?
Because it's curving. Curved lines don't meet 90s, do they, boy?
They do. Ask any geometry professor. Yes, that's my answer.
Yeah. Now I'm saying if I can get somebody to unequivocally demonstrate to you in a position of authority that understands this stuff that no, you cannot acquire 90 from a curve, that you'll resign. You've said yes.
Yes, of course.
You think you can get 90 from a curve? Not to a curve, from a curve, just to be sure.
Okay.
At that point, yes.
Okay. So we just need to get somebody in authority to confirm to you that 90 degrees isn't possible and you will resign.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Okay? We'll see how we get on, Matthew. And when we achieve it, I will. That's it. You got the general gist. 10th.
I was trying to help him, and he was so, his hubris, I guess, was so large. He didn't, like, I was begging him to rethink what he was doing.
Yeah, I know you were, but we all know where he was trying to go with his tangent. He wasn't saying it. He tried to at one point. If you listen back on the Uncut and After show, there's a point where he's like saying, no, I want to get to geometric objects. I want to be clear about the geometric objects I'm detailing that can have 90 degrees to a curve. You're like, I just cut him off. I'm like, no, I'm not even going to let you say it. Yeah, you're trying to take us away from your diagram that we're debating about onto some geometric principle that that will be really hyper-specific to his example that has 90 degrees to a curve. And it's like, yeah, we've done all this before, Dumbo. So as soon as we even get the hint that you're trying to take us there, we're going to shut you down and you're going to get sworn at. And he did. Now, frustration is mainly born out of the fact the guy's a teacher. So, you know, like I say, I went to the effort of editing that up with you in the back of my mind ringing, "This isn't very shareable, Nathan," in the back of my mind while I'm editing it.
Well, well, listen, it happens. You've been doing a really good job of trying to keep the
Have I
show
been doing
shareable.
well
So
recently? I've been doing well.
you have, but I can understand things happen. I mean, but let's move on, because I think since John is here, he got it. When I first was showing how they were doing the um, uh, sensible horizon, which is their eye line horizon, uh, and then they get a vertical to it using a bubble sextant. Uh, John picked up on that and made it simpler by having two horizontals, the one on the surface of the earth and the one at the eye line. And his description, it's evolved, and he's done a great job of explaining it better. It's the differential between the two horizontals. And so how did they get an eye line horizon on a boat? Well, you can't use a bubble sextant on a boat. So what do they have to use? They have to use the actual horizon, the apparent horizon, where the sky meets the earth, apparently, because it moves. So there goes geometric horizon right there, because it's based on the weather. So the whole point is, then you take an elevation angle up from the horizon to get your angular view of that sun above the horizon. So if it says 50 degrees, then how did you get that 50 degrees? By bringing the sun down to the horizon. And the most important part after that is rocking the sextant from left to right. Why do you rock the sextant on the boat left to right? Well, you want the perpendicular. You want it where it's exactly 90 degrees. So what you're establishing in that part of the operation of the sextant is 90 degrees of sun over the earth. So you rock it left, no, it's not 90. You rock it right, no, they're past the middle. And all of a sudden you find that nice place of the pendulum motion of the sun over the horizon. You say, mark. And so now you've established the zenith of the sun, the 90 of the sun at the GP where the sun is, 1,000 miles away, 2,000 miles away, whatever, doesn't matter. Then that's your altitude. So guess what's easy to do? Figure out what your zenith is at this point, because you couldn't do it. You're on a rocking ship. So now you get the co-altitude. So that's 40, because you had 50 with the elevation angle of the sun. 50 minus 90 is 40. 40 times 60 is 2,400 nautical miles. So it leaves you with the co-altitude, which is the zenith distance, the zenith of the sun and the zenith of the observer. Well, my goodness, how did you get your zenith if you're on a boat? Well, because I measured the sun's zenith first, because I can't measure mine. Like he said on the show, which I caught, it's a plumb bob with the direction down. Well, that's the sailor on the boat, but you can never get it. So you have to get the plumb bob is the sun, its zenith first, and then when you subtract and get the co-altitude, guess what? If you were at still water and you hung a plumb bob and had a protractor on it, it would say 40 based on your zenith. The same as you got by the second move after the elevation angle. They're mixing those two on purpose.
Well, his job's on the line for it now. So, great move.
Yeah, but he believes he's on a globe, so he don't even have an angle to a curve anymore because of refraction. You know, that's done. That's done and dusted. So you still got the curved adjacent problem with your elevation angle measurement.
Yeah,
You're saying that bottom line is curving, not an angle.
Exactly. He doesn't realize that in terms of where he is on the curve, he's behind the curve where people like Ruhif sit. So, as much as I hate to say this, Ruhif's ahead of the curve in that regard compared to Matthew Learns, because he's got to the point where he's now trying to use angles to the horizon to do dip corrections and get around that little problem. Okay, right. Well, then you need a geometric horizon. If you're looking at a horizon in a sextant and correcting for it, it needs to be your geometric horizon, which isn't there anymore. It's refracted, has been since 2020. So that's the end of the argument for them. That's Ruhif and Co. or anybody else that's peddling dip correction from a geometric horizon, right? How's that geometric horizon working out for you? Yeah, well, if Matthew Learns hasn't heard that, it's because he's behind the curve, or he has heard it and hasn't recognised the problem, the implication of what he needs for dip corrections to geometric horizons when they're all refracted. But he's not quite there yet, is he? He's still in the delusion land of, yeah, I can get a 90 from a curve. No, you can't. You can't even get one to a curve once you've figured out that you
How's he
can't
not
do that.
there yet?
Well, because he's arrogant, so he thinks he's smarter than us all. For instance, when he was trying to take us to his geometric, hyper-specific tangent to a sphere with a 90 sat on it, in his mind, we don't know where he's going. That's what he's hoping for, because he's arrogant. He thinks we're stupid. Oh, well, they wouldn't know where I'm taking. I'm a mathematician. I know how to take these geometric principles and slap a straight line on a sphere and put 90 on that, and that's where I'm going to try and take them, after citing something specific and debating about celestial navigation and whether or not we've got 90s at ground positions. It's like, no, you're not going to take us there. No, but your cockiness has led you to put your job on it, thinking that you'd be able to take us there, and you haven't. So now your job's just on the line for the ground position 90 that you say we'll have because we've got a curved baseline, according to him. It's like, no, you're not at the Ruhif stage where you're ignoring the curved baseline and taking tangent points that you can't get because it's all refracted. He's behind the curve in that regard. Meanwhile, he thinks we're stupid.
You got it.
Yeah. Well, you know, that would make him a baller more than an anti-flat at that point. For you're arguing for a tangent point to meet to a curve, you're a baller. If you're trying to say you can get an angle from a curve, you just don't want it to be flat.
Yeah, maybe he falls into the latter category. I mean, it doesn't really matter. The confessions we've got because he's in that position are what we've got, and perhaps the reason why people like Ruhif do not want to come here. You know, they want to argue via emails and Skype messages behind the scenes because that's far less embarrassing. But either way, you know, as soon as we ask that question, how's that geometric horizon working out for you, lads? That's the end for them, because they've spent 2 or 3 years barking refraction at us. What are they going to do? Deny it? No, why is it no Atmo Day?
Nathan, I have today's video already up for you for review. It's going to be a very interesting one about second law of thermodynamics and natural law. But I just posted a short one which covers what we're talking about. What is celestial navigation? You may want to do that now.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to censor us, or they'd have to censor celestial navigation. That's so funny.
Have you ever wondered how sailors in ancient times managed to navigate the treacherous sea without the modern instruments such as GPS, radar, etc.?
I'm going to go with no. No, never really concerned me. Being honest.
Was done using stars, which has been an essential technique for sailors throughout history. Even in today's modern world with advanced navigation technology, the stars continue to play a significant role in maritime navigation.
Yeah, all the charts are going to be based on those systems that were developed from them. So it's not that they're more important, it's they're integral to current navigation, regardless of if you're using GPS or not. It's still using all of those systems. GPS is a flat Earth system. So while they infer that, oh no, we're going to go back and use the now redundant stars, no, they're absolutely integral to all of the current navigation systems. I know you're trying to get this played out for an affirmation, and I'm not be criticising it 10th, but I'm just going to say it as it is.
Let's explore how ships navigate using the stars and the fascinating celestial navigation techniques employed by seafarers. But before we discuss more about this topic, please subscribe to our YouTube channel.
I have put a link in the live stream chat, so whether or not one of the mods, if this is going out on the after show, can put a link to them. And as always, at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, we have to a degree criticised this video. I'm sure everything else in it will be in complete agreement with 10th.
Yeah, he shows demonstrations and pictures, and just watch it. It's pretty good. Matthew Learn should watch it.
At night, sailors rely on celestial bodies, primarily stars, to determine their position and course at sea. The key celestial bodies used in navigation are Polaris, also called the Pole Star or the North Star in the Northern Hemisphere, and the Southern.
I mean, what now? I mean, begging the question, sphere. See, the celestial sphere is a hemisphere from your position, with Polaris at the centre. It would form a sphere that would end at the equator if you were measuring Polaris at its extremities, backing away from it towards what we now call the equator. What now? Sphere? Not on the ground. Go on, John.
I was going to say, as long as you're talking about the celestial sphere and its utilization within navigation, as long as you're within that context, hemisphere is entirely appropriate. If you try to describe the Earth that way, the ground that you're standing on, as being spherical and having a hemisphere, you're wrong.
I need to chime in here. When I called the navigator early on, I said, why is it that you have to assume the Earth is flat and not rotating? And he said, because it works better that way.
Southern Cross in the Southern Hemisphere. The pole star is located very close to the celestial North Pole, which is the point directly above the geographic North Pole of the Earth.
Did we lose you?
Nathan? Nathan!
Yes, sorry, I was on mute.
Oh, good. I thought the computer cracked.
No, it was me. I was just on mute accidentally. Right, this is all wrong. So he's got a sort of what looks like a celestial sphere, but then he's got stars on the background as well. And then he's got a globe in the middle, but he hasn't drawn out an equatorial plane on it. So
It's coming.
Okay, well, this all just looks wrong at this stage.
Earth. It serves as a reliable and constant reference point in the night sky for sailors in the Northern Hemisphere. By observing the angle between the horizon and the pole star,
Where did the globe go? Okay, I see he's got a correct diagram. So now he's got a flat plane with the star, an angle along a flat base. Yeah, this is the equatorial plane, which should have been in the middle of his globe burger, but wasn't. And yeah, this is how it's done, right? So what you're looking at is the observer, and he's stood on a flat plane. There it is. Game over. Earth's flat. This is how it's done.
known
and
as
if
the
you use a
stars.
point source derivative equation like Haversine, you can take those points on the celestial sphere and assign them to a smaller sphere below. But that doesn't mean you took your measurements from that sphere. That's really confusing people.
No, it's
altitude.
it needs to be excuse me. It needs to be understood that site reduction tables, which is useful navigation, are based on sea level, horizontal, obviously no dip, no refraction. And all the nautical almanacs say it's all coming from the equatorial plane. So what it is that distance of 3959 for their globe is so small in the view of all the stars in the universe that it's negligible. So whether you have a horizontal 3,959 miles above the actual horizontal, the equatorial plane, they excuse it because the great distances of the stars. This is the way they talk. I'm not saying any of this is true, but the whole point is they need what John has already said. They need two horizontals, eye level, which would be the surface of the Earth, not the eye of the, well, in this case, let me expand. The eye level would be the sensible horizon if you had a bubble sextant or a level at your eye line. Then you got the surface of the ocean, which would be the other horizontal. And then you got the rational horizon or the equatorial plane, identicals, which would be where all the nautical almanacs say the measurements are coming from. So no matter what, they need a plane. They can never get it off a curved surface. I don't care how many sensible horizons, astronomical horizons, geoidal horizon, rational horizon. I don't care how many they call, none of them are curved. That's the point.
Sailors can estimate their latitude. The Southern Cross, also known as crux, is used for ship navigation primarily in the Southern Hemisphere. It serves as a prominent celestial reference point. It is a distinctive and easily recognizable constellation, consisting of 4 main stars that form a cross shape.
Okay. We haven't really commented much on the use of a flat plane over the southern celestial hemisphere.
Okay. It's really what John has already alluded to before. It's the planisphere, basically. You flip it over and you see the other stars that you can't see unless you flip it over. So the equator line is the demarcation for that. And it's just one big disk. So if you were to get, I think it's called the Messier planisphere, it's got the whole of the stars. The Eisenhower one, which we're looking for, built in the 70s, had it all. But normally you buy them by latitudes. So you have to flip it over to see the other ones. So it's just flipping over. So if you get to the equator, what are you seeing? You're seeing Polaris at the horizon, and you're seeing the southernmost stars at the horizon because you're at the equator. Now, what if you're northern hemisphere on their globe model? You're seeing more of Polaris higher in the sky because you're closer to it, and less of the ones that you saw at the equator. You can't even see those ones because you're not at the equator anymore. So just, you remember the equatorial mount is an extension of the Earth's equator all the way to the celestial sphere. And he says, you got to imagine the Earth is flat. Remember that video we did on the equatorial mount telescope? Sure. So that's all it is, just one big disk to them. And no matter where you are, you're only seeing a certain set of stars from 90 to 0. So when you wake up and you see sunrise, you're seeing the sun at 0 going to 90. And then you see it from 90 going to 180. Well, 180 is a straight line. So you just saw 10,800 nautical miles sun movement, 5,400 for 190, 5,400 nautical miles for the next 90. So you already know you got 10,400 nautical miles of a flat plane because it's a 180.
These are certain stars that serve as reliable reference points for determining the ship's direction and latitude. There are numerous other stars as well that sailors use to navigate their ships. To navigate by the stars, sailors use an instrument called a sextant.
Does he cover specifically that you've got a group called the Navigation Stars? Does he actually get to that? Or is that his summary?
Oh, no, keep going. The illustrations are
sextant
coming. You're going to
allow them to measure the angle between a celestial body, usually the sun or a star, and the horizon. By comparing this measurement with the known position of the celestial body at a specific time, sailors can calculate their latitude.
With reference to a flat plane, the equatorial plane. So what he's drawing now is a circle of equal elevation or equal altitude, depending on who you're referencing. But that circle is on a flat map for a reason, because it's the same distance in all directions across a flat plane. The equatorial plane for reference if you're talking about latitude specifically. That's why all the maps and charts are flat. Because you're drawing out areas of flat circle. A flat circle that's got no elevation change in it. In other words, it's not curving away from you. This would not work if it did. It's just that simple.
The sextant is a precision instrument that requires skill and expertise to use accurately.
On a flat Earth, if you're taking elevation angle measurements using it.
Navigating by the stars also involves understanding various celestial navigation concepts.
Like you're on a flat Earth.
One such concept is the altitude of a celestial body.
With reference to a flat Earth, and there it is. There's the diagram. Here's your flat Earth.
Which is the angle it appears above the horizon.
Yeah, if this is the angle above the horizon, then the outside extremity is the equatorial plane extremity. Now, somewhere between that extremity, you've got the star. Well, the star's going to be on the ground with a 90-degree angle between you and its ground position. So that 90 degree means that there can only be a flat surface between you and it. This has to be flat. Earth has to be flat to navigate it successfully.
By measuring the altitude and knowing the exact time of the observation, sailors can plot their position on a nautical chart using special navigation tables and
Yeah, they're all flat. Yeah, that chart he's got, that's flat,
mathematical calculations.
using flat planes.
Additionally, sailors consider other factors such as the ship's speed, course, and time to determine their position accurately. They take multiple celestial sightings over time to establish a reliable fix.
Okay, so in terms of getting your fix with the sun, yeah? Well, when you do that, all of these angles must be on the same flat baseline in order to acquire it. So this is the first diagram that 10th has sent us still. We'll reference these again because these are great.
That's the point where they the globe religion differs from Slit, from flat earthers, because they're flat earthers too. You got to remember that they believe that the plane is actually turning in that celestial sphere model, and that's where they get the idea of antitotal.
Sure, but as they rotate it, their angle that they're inferring is the angle coming from the centre of a sphere as they rotate the sphere, as though the sphere itself, the globe Earth, is the protractor, with another sphere around that, which is the celestial sphere. And then the angle is, like I say, the angle off a flat plane, the equatorial plane, at the centre of their sphere, and the sphere rotating to be the angle change. So, but that doesn't afford you this angle measurement that's shown on screen now with the three boats. All three are measuring off a flat plane. They're not taking it from the centre of hell so that they can rotate a globe Earth and infer that that's what the angle change is when the angle's coming from a flat Earth. It's just that simple. That's how it's being measured.
Let me
This
remind
process
the audience.
is no
Go on.
Yeah, let me remind the audience. In the equatorial mount telescope that we did a while back ago, plus what we're talking about now, celestial navigation, when I called the navigator and I said, why is it that you have to assume the Earth is stationary and the stars are moving? He says, because it works better that way. Now, let's dig deep another layer. When you extend the Earth's equator all the way to the celestial sphere, which is infinite, you just have this one big disk in space, their space. And all the stars underneath you can't see. All the stars above that equatorial plane that extends to the celestial equator as one big disk, you only see the stars above that plane from 0 to 90, 90 to 180. So that means, based on the way they say it, and I've got this in writing as well as verbal, the stars you can't see underneath. And since they just admitted, well, you got to imagine the Earth is stationary and the stars are moving, then how in the world is there anything below you?
Now we are joined by Neil, Refracted Curvature, Arvin, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome, one and all.
Let's get it on. Let's go.
Hey, good afternoon.
Well, good afternoon. Good to have you all. Shout out to Skeptic936. He says, hi, everyone. Good to have you. Your super chat was about as enthusiastic as the rest of the panels. Thank you for the super chat.
Hello, good afternoon.
Also, shout
Hello.
out to Jardo,
What's up, Skip?
who gifted 5 memberships immediately. And Adam Meakin, who's one of my mods, has picked one up immediately as well, as has Neil. Tight sods. Keep swiping up the free memberships. How dare they? Anyway, welcome to the club. There's also a edited video of the Matthew Learns confessionals, which had a lot of swearing in it in the live stream. So I took a prolonged period, edited out, and it's now become a video that is called Flat Earth Wins. And we discussed that in the pre-show. A lot of work it took. That's going to come out in the next couple of days, but it is available if you're a member, and the previous week's videos are now available to the public. So if you do want to see the Rubber Ducky Life Preserver or Matthew Learns basically putting his job on the line for a curve angle, then those are now available to the public on this channel, Nathan Oakley 1980. So check those out if you haven't done so already. There's 2 versions of each. One's a couple of minutes long and the other's 10 or 15 minutes long. So there you go. Plenty to choose from if you've not watched videos on this channel. I've put a lot out recently, and there's also loads of member stuff. So those new members, you can check that out once this live show's finished. Please share the show if you haven't done so already. Let's do a bit of housekeeping. It's all very exciting. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge? That's a horizon, formerly known as Earth curvature.
I
You
would
know,
hope you
The model that was based off of flat Earth.
The flat Earth model that was called the globe. Yeah, that's not going to cut it. Go on, John.
well, yeah, I was going to say the Earth curve calculator ain't going to get you there either, because you'll need a differential between two flat planes to calculate anything in that. But so that won't help you.
Not to mention the
Yeah,
Atmo day that we're all experiencing if we're
correct.
begging the question of a sphere Earth in a sky vacuum. You know, you've got to have that Atmos clinging to the world without expanding into it for them to have no Atmo day and bent lines like on screen now from Andrew Thomas Young. Sorry, I rumpus somebody in the Discord server. Hold on one second, whoever that is in G+. Go on, whoever it was.
Now, just to mention that Al-Biruni, he ran out of mountain. If he had more mountain or a tower on the top of the mountain, his angle would be a different one, a different reading. So we would have a different radius.
Well, it's a depression angle anyway to a flat plane. And with Andrew Thomas Young and the geometric horizon, it could only be a thought experiment because it only exists in the mathematics. It doesn't exist in reality. The black swan proved that. It's beyond this limitation.
Well, the thing is about that, though, it debunked the misinterpretation of the mathematics that they were using. But the mathematics is still a differential calculation. So it's still using, you're pretty much determining the size, the radius of the flat plane. And if you apply 7/6R to it, you're just expanding that flat plane.
Well, you're absolutely right. And I know we've said this before, but let's say it again because it's a confession, but a subtle confession. When it comes to refraction, all his studies of refraction were done on a plane, but we know the Earth isn't flat, ! In his writing. So we must take some geometric considerations followed up. So what's he admitting to subtly there? Well, when I went to study refraction, I couldn't do it on the Dingleberry globe. I had to do it on the plane. But I know we don't live on the plane, so I'm going to bring some Dingleberry math and make it a globe again. I mean, does everyone see the admission there?
Any evidence you can acquire an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline?
Possibility.
You say there is
It's
a
going to
possibility.
it's going to be like today's video review on the laws that govern our existence, like thermodynamic laws, natural laws. They have to excuse them in order for their fairy tale globe to exist.
Well, hold on. It must exist because Matthew bet his job on it. It doesn't matter
Well-
whether AutoCAD can't do it, and our sources and his sources say that it's impossible. It must be possible.
Triangulation, where intersecting lines are drawn on a chart from different celestial bodies to pinpoint the ship's location.
On a flat Earth.
Hang on, did you get that?
While
Triangulation, Matthew learns, not trilateration.
Celestial navigation requires expertise and practice. It also offers a sense of connection with the ancient art of navigation and
I mean, not really. Like I say, I said this in the pre-show when we were covering the first half of this video, that to infer that it's like archaic or ancient or, redundant in any way when everything's based on it is kind of a bit disingenuous or ignorant, one or the other.
and the vastness of the cosmos. It allows sailors to navigate independently of modern technology.
That may be true, but the modern technology also requires the same star charts and positioning from those celestial spheres that are being utilized in the same methodology on a Cartesian system in GPS. So again, it's kind of alluding to the idea that one is old and dusty but very romantic, and the other is just technologically advanced and doesn't need it anymore. That's the inference. He's not saying that, but that's what I take from how he's packaging it. Go on,
But
whoever that
how
was.
does the vastness of space relate to anything about navigation?
Just because they're
It
talking about
doesn't.
stars.
No.
So in his paradigm, whenever the stars get mentioned, that's what they mean it is. Let's just let Adam in. Anyway, we've only got a couple more minutes of this video. I just want to wrap it up because we have covered it in the pre-show, so I just want to get to the end of it.
Providing a backup method in case equipment failure or in remote areas where other navigational aids may be limited.
But the navigational aids that he's saying might fail, this is my main point. And it's my only criticism so far, because everything else is disseminated as exactly as the dissemination came to us from Matthew Learns when he cited a naval officer who navigated for a career, and also Harold Jacoby when we referenced some of the navigation books. This guy's no different, we're no different. Anyway, those bits, no worries. But when you're talking about it in reference to the equipment's leaning on the exact same processes, charts, and systems that have come from the stars. So the two are symbiotic in that regard. It's not like they're mutually exclusive.
Although advancements in technology have made celestial navigation less common in everyday maritime operations.
See? I knew it. He didn't explicitly say it now, he does, and now I'm angry with him. Right. No. The systems that are being used by the technology are part and parcel of the same systems. They're both using Cartesian grids. So when we're talking about them in the vein that, no, we've got this new technological advancement that makes redundant the stars in terms of how they're utilised, that's incorrect. So he's explicitly stated it now, even though I suspected this is where it was leading, and I was damn right to do so.
It remains a valuable skill for seafarers, especially for those navigating in extreme conditions on long voyages or in...
What difference does it make? It doesn't make any difference about the extreme conditions that you're in. Literally zero. It has absolutely no bearing whatsoever. Bearing, no pun.
In areas with limited infrastructure. We hope you found this video informative and...
We did, it was very good, other than the idea that the current technological advancements in celestial navigation aren't based on and utilising the exact same structures, methodologies, charts, systems, grid systems, everything. It's all basically the same. You know, when we say GPS is a flat earth proof, it's for the exact same reasons. Anyway, that was that. So I should really give this guy a proper bit of promotion. I'm not sure how big he is. But either way, everyone gets the same treatment. Doesn't really matter how big he is. We have responded, and it's worth letting him know. And probably worth giving the guy a sub. That was a pretty good job, I would agree. He's not in this discussion. He's just a normie guy disseminating it in a concise way. And in that respect, I think, well, I'll ask the panel rather than assume for them. Would anybody disagree that that was actually a very good job of disseminating that in a concise manner? I would say that it is a good job. I'm biasing the panel immediately.
Yeah, that's why I posted it for review for you, because he brought in triangulation. Now, I've posted some slides just now in Master D, because while I was away, I did catch Matthew Learns talking about trilateration. Which are two different things, but here we're just on video with the sextant. Triangulation, okay, triangles in the word. Trilateration. Tell me when you're on the first slide.
I am.
What is the difference between trilateration and triangulation? Well, trilateration relies on signal strength as an analog for distance. Triangulation relies on timing differences in the reception of tag signals, because these signals travel at a speed of light. The time differences in transmission are very small. That makes measuring instruments more expensive. How is triangulation used to determine location? In surveying, triangulation is the process of determining the location of a point by measuring only angles to it from known points at either end of a fixed baseline, rather than measuring distances to a point directly, as in trilateration. Next slide, please. GPS is often compared to triangulation, which is actually not entirely correct. More correct would be trilateration. Trilateration is based upon distances rather than the intersection of lines based on angles. Sextant measures angles. Next slide. Trilateration measures distances, not angles. I mean, the title says it right there. I mean, you can read this later, but title says it right there. And Matthew Learns was trying to say with a sextant, you do trilateration, not triangulation. He's wrong again. Next slide. Triangulation uses only angles to assemble triangles and determine positions. Think surveying. Trilateration uses known distances from a point to determine the location. I can't even say that word. Use differences in time of arrival of a single signal at different locations to determine distance. So you need instruments and electronics for trilateration, but you just need a sextant for triangulation. Next slide, Wikipedia. In surveying, triangulation is the process of determining a location of a point by measuring only angles to it from known points at either end of a fixed baseline by using trigonometry, rather than measuring distances to the point directly, as in trilateration. The point can then be fixed as the third point of a triangle with one known side and two known angles. Enough said. Mr. Sensible had this debate with Mitchell from Australia, lost a couple of years ago. Now it's surfacing up again, and Matthew Learns doesn't know the difference, doesn't know what a sextant, how it works.
Well, trilateration's working on the idea of drawing a line using that signal differential, right, from where you're at, and calling that distance.
Yeah, you need a point on Earth and like a receiver, and you get it involves electronics and pinging basically. Whereas where is that in the sextant? Anything on the sextant work that way? No, it's an angle measuring device.
But my point is the shortest distance between 2 points is a line. If you're talking about distance over ground, you need a straight line.
Correct.
So it's a red herring, but it's not a red herring that does them any favors.
Right, so it's a red herring that also requires straight line distances along the ground if you're going to infer it for a distance measurement. It's like, okay, well, you need the distance to be known if you're going to infer trilateration. And the whole purpose of finding your position is that you know where the stars are above at given times, but you don't know where you are. So how are you going to have a fixed known distance? You're not. That's the point. Either way, if you have got a straight line distance for trilateration, that's not helping you along the ground, is it? It's just going to affirm our position. So it's a red herring that doesn't help them. You're right. That's a good description of it, John. Shout out to Godzilla37. 9 out of 10 Globers, here we go. 9 out of 10 Globers did not want him back. But he's back. Welcome back, 10th. I missed him greatly. I missed you greatly, 10th. You were missed.
Well, I caught the live shows, most of it, but taking care of parents got busy. I'm glad to be back, though. Thank you for that sentiment.
Okay, so we've got a different video that's going to be shared with the live stream chat now, so let them know. This is Arvin, is it? Arvin Ash?
Yeah, you've done him before. Let me set this up for you. You've done him before. This is very interesting, though. It just came out not too long ago. And he's you know the dilemma they have when they violate natural law? You can't believe what he's going to try to do to not have the dilemma of violating natural law. And I'm glad Adam and John are here because this is more up their alley of understanding. So it's going to be a good one today.
By Magellan
Morning,
TV,
guys.
the best documentary streaming service available. Click the link in the description to get your first month absolutely free. It may be the most sacrosanct principle in all of science, something you learned in elementary school. The idea that overall energy is always conserved, that energy can never be created nor destroyed.
Okay, so he's opening with the first law of thermodynamics, which is a very good start. As I've just said, let him know, at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. Just drop him a line and let him know we've responded to his video. Hopefully, in exchange, should he respond, he'll put a link to my video. It's entirely selfish motivation for me telling you to go to his video and say, at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me.
It can only change form. So for example, when a car is in motion but comes to a stop, the kinetic energy of its motion is converted to frictional heat from the brakes. No energy is lost. It is just converted from one
Okay, so this is obviously for a very dumbed down audience, which is no bad thing, maybe.
form to another. Similarly, a swinging pendulum converts its gravitational potential energy when at
Gravitational potential energy is dropped in some terms we don't like already.
its maximum height to kinetic energy at its lowest height. If there were no friction from the fulcrum or air, the pendulum could theoretically swing back and forth forever. But even with friction, overall energy is still conserved when you take the heat from the friction into account. What if I were to tell you that although conservation of energy for all practical purposes and applications on Earth is conserved, on the scale of the universe,
No, this is one of those. I won't steal your thunder, John. You feel free to say it's your line. Is he gone? He's obviously did.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm a little bit tied up at the moment. Sorry.
This is one of those short distance high energy problems that he's got here. Would you not agree? He's a bit tied up. I'll ask him later.
this is not the case. Energy is not conserved in the universe.
Well, then it wouldn't be a law of nature anymore. Why lead with telling us what a law of nature is and what it states if you're now going to completely violate it and say, you know what? That law of nature that applies always to nature, it doesn't apply over here in this special circumstance. Oh, right. Have you been to this place, Narnia, outer space, a sky vacuum, to verify that this law of nature does not hold true? Of course not.
As a whole. What? How can this be?
It can't. Yeah, okay, Numpty, what you're recognising is that space violates a law of nature. And you're saying, well, no, if I just say the law of nature, who are you to suddenly decide that laws of nature aren't applicable in a place you've never been? All right.
So
you know what I'm going to say? Go on, whoever. Go on.
No, that was me. That was me. So this is the dilemma they have. We're governed by laws of nature. We have gas pressure, must have container for it. We have all the other arguments and the housekeeping questions, but they've got to make their outer space real. 10 to the minus 17 torr next to gas pressure without a container. You got to make that real somehow. So when it comes to their belief of outer space and black holes and dark matter and all this stuff, they have to violate laws of nature. He's basically admitting, how can this be? I live on a globe and there's a vacuum of space and dark matter and all these different things. How could it be? Because it would violate these laws of nature. So I'm going to say something now to where I can excuse laws of nature. And that's what he does the rest of the video.
Right. So if I say there's a special land beyond the wardrobe called Narnia, and in Narnia, there are multiple seasons existing all at once. Now, I understand that that kind of doesn't jive with laws of nature, but what I'm going to say, how can that be? Well, the laws of nature don't apply in Narnia. It is just that simple. Now, if you thought the laws of nature that govern where we are applicable to this magical place that I have never been, you have never been, and violates these laws that I'm about to say aren't applicable there, well then more fool you. You just didn't appreciate that this place you've never been beyond the wardrobe door, that is Narnia, is able of having all of these different seasons all at the same time because the laws of nature don't apply there. Obviously.
Yeah, because they're going to hold on to one thing. You've never been there. You said it yourself. So you don't know how the things work up there.
Well, if you're claiming it's part of nature, then it would have to uphold natural law.
Stay tuned because I'm going to explain that coming up.
No, you're not. What you'll do is try and undermine the laws of nature, and we ain't going to let it fly.
Right now.
We're about to get reason.
I hate that. We're going to do this right now. So you're not going to do it right now, then you're going to roll an intro right now.
About isolated system versus closed system. In thermodynamics, an isolated system is one in which no energy or matter can enter or leave. A well-insulated thermos would approximate an isolated system, but there's no perfect isolated system we know of. A closed system is one in which no matter enters or leaves.
I hear an objection.
Yeah, the thermos would be a closed system. A well-insulated thermos is still just a closed system because you can heat the outside of the thermos and change the temperature inside the thermos. It would just take longer. So he's using a closed system as an isolated system for, I'm guessing, a magic trick he's getting ready to do.
Perhaps.
Well,
I mean,
they might be slightly confused. The Glober came here once and told us the closed thermos is an open system.
Yep, that's right.
Okay, let's just clear it up. So when we're talking about laws of nature or describing gas law, you're always going to be describing it in a generalized way to make it understandable to anybody who's applying it to their world that they experience. And for that to occur, you have to simplify things like the gases themselves into ideal gases, for example. You also have to give this convention solidity, that's the word. To solidify this convention, you need to describe something that doesn't actually exist in nature. So by description only, you have an isolated system. However, for some reason, that, what's the word? Way of describing the convention, there's no other way I can phrase it, has been utilized here for a reason that seems fishy. We don't know why yet, but it seems fishy. Would you agree, John?
Yeah, I feel like he's priming the magic trick, showing you, how solid this wall is, right? Even though there's a hidden door, he's showing you how solid it is right now. But he's getting ready to do something fishy.
Okay, but he's right in terms of his descriptions, though, so far. If you take him at face value, so an isolated system, although it doesn't exist in nature, does not have any energy or matter transfer between the two. Now, obviously, if you leave a thermos on the side, it's not going to stay warm forever. There is obviously energy being transferred. Even though it's very good and well insulated, it doesn't make any difference. It's just a closed system. Okay, so a closed system has energy transfer but no matter. An open system has both. So that's strictly speaking, he's done an okay job. There's nothing wrong with how he's described it so far, other than saying, well, this isolated system in my example by thermos, it's like, no. Why use it if it's not used to simplify the convention for people to understand? You're using it in an example. That means it's probably going to be stepping outside of the convention, as John has suspected. We'll see. Godzilla37, thanks for super chat. 1 second. Because we know we're on a unicorn. Yeah, I agree. We do know by presupposition. I'm not going to conclude we're on a unicorn, but because I don't conclude with it, Godzilla, yeah, it's not begging the question fallacy if I just say because we know we're on a unicorn without the conclusion. So yeah, this is not a begging the question fallacy, right? Anyway, let's read his super chat as he's paid $14 for it. No, just wait. Bloody hell. I'm reading a super chat. Godzilla37 says, because we know we're on a unicorn, we know its hair is made of diamonds and its hooves are made of gold. Because its hooves are made of gold and its hair of diamonds, we then know we live on a unicorn. That's an affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy. Thank you very much. I'm glad I preempted it by saying this isn't a begging the question fallacy. It's much worse. It's the begging the question fallacy on steroids. Thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate the support. Go ahead, 10th.
Sorry, my timing's off. I was gone a week.
Welcome back, Tim.
Hey, Jonko. So isn't this similar with a cooler filled with ice and you go to a day to the beach and you got all this ice and soft drinks or whatever and you just leave it there? Does the ice stay ice all the time or does it melt? If you never open it.
It melts.
Okay.
Eventually, it's just a very well-insulated closed system. But that's fine. We'll see why he's using this false equivalence or false analogy.
Or leaves, but energy can. A covered pot or cup of tea would approximate a closed system. So in an isolated system, that is a system where no matter or energy enters or leaves, overall energy remains the same. Energy only changes form. We see examples of this every day.
Hold on, why is he convoluting these two principles together? That doesn't only apply to an isolated system in the simplification that is the description of the law in respect to the first law of thermodynamics. I don't know why he's done that. Again, this is getting more and more... Go on. I was going to say it's getting more and more fishy, but you've obviously, the stench has whiffed up enough for you. Go ahead.
If you move the bar over, right, then you can make Earth an approximately closed system.
If he blurs the lines between isolated and closed, you can blur the lines between closed and open. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, well, let's see. Let's see if you're right.
When you're driving and you slam the brakes to a stop, what happens to the kinetic energy of your car? Well, it's converted to heat by the friction from the brakes. You don't feel this heat because this is not an isolated system. The heat is dissipated to the atmosphere. But if you could somehow put your car brake, road, and atmosphere in a box and measure the heat, you would find that the kinetic energy of the car has near.
Yeah, it's definitely blurred the lines between the two. So he's saying you can't because it's not isolated. But if I put it into a closed system, no. So what you're saying is you can't because it's not a closed system, but you just said isolated. So again, he's blurred the lines for the second time. Strike two.
Nearly perfectly transformed into heat energy. The same holds true for any isolated system and would apply to other
any closed system. So back to blurring the lines. That's strike three. I think we'll all agree.
Phenomena such as the pendulum I talked about earlier. So the question we want to ask is whether this holds true for the universe as a whole.
Hold on, when you say whether or not this holds true, it's a law of nature. So if it doesn't hold true, it wouldn't have been a law of nature for you to discuss in the first instance. So this is self-defeating right off the bat, because you're now going to try and violate what you've just described holds true in nature. Cut to a CGI image. So we're going to find out whether or not this is true in Narnia. We're going to need to be in Narnia to do this. Where are we in this image? Looking back at Earth as a sphere. Number one, we know Earth's not a sphere. Number two, we know that this area is claimed in this model of Narnia, space, as being 10 to the minus 17 tall. So all of these clouds, yeah, this one in particular that's right on the edge, right, that's right next to a 10 to the minus 17 tall vacuum, this black area. And it's not expanding in all directions to fill the volume. Utterly absurd. So this isn't just a first law of thermodynamics violation, it's a second law of thermodynamics violation, straight off the bat. But you're going to wonder and worry about whether or not the first law is applicable. That's a law of nature to a world that we can't experience ever. Well, I'm not really too concerned about that. I mean, we could postulate whether or not this shit works in Narnia, but Narnia's not real.
Consider the entire universe a well-defined isolated system? Since
no isolated systems exist, but suddenly the universe, when we imagine it as a 10 to the minus 17 tall vacuum and Earth as a sphere in an orbital motion disseminated by the church, then it's an isolated system then. Have you verified this? No, we're not in an orbit. No, we're not on a sphere. No, we're not in a sky vacuum. Again, but we're going to worry about whether or not we've got an isolated system that's a convention-defining idea that doesn't exist in reality. Suddenly, it's applicable to his entire universe, that he's not getting the perspective that we're being shown on screen now. No, I'm not worried about Narnia. This is absurd.
the universe is everything, shouldn't it be the ultimate isolated system?
Shouldn't it? Why are you now postulating? Shouldn't you know if you're going to apply things to it in terms of laws of nature that you're about to debunk?
It turns out that the answer is not straightforward.
Hang on.
Shocking.
He said the universe is everything. No, laws of nature is everything, and it applies to everything. So that was the language. He's trying to get us out of Earth into Narnia. So basically, Narnia is everything. Well, what about here when I'm not through the closet doors and I'm have these laws of nature? No, once you go through the closet door, that's everything.
Yeah, exactly.
No, Tim. The universe is everything except the part of the universe that we don't know about yet.
Yeah, but what if it was a totally isolated system? Hold on. The laws of nature apply to where I experience. We're not experiencing this garbage on screen now from a position that you claim it could be in existence from, even though that position only exists in a mathematical orbital motion invented by a man from the church. So all of it's absurd. We're not in Narnia. We don't need to assess whether or not laws of nature that apply always in worlds that we actually experience physically compared to ones that we don't.
Let's examine why. If we want to include the whole universe, we have...
Your universe, what we've just expanded out through something that we saw from the ground in an area that had lateral laws applied to it. Now we're suddenly zooming out like we can experience coming out from an area I see through a telescope. No, this is utterly absurd.
Have to include everything from the very small to the very large.
Not just the night sky in this reference, with you imagining that you can dive in through lights in the sky like Superman, like they're places that you can swim through.
Let's start with the very small. The behavior of...
No, we've just swam through a world that doesn't exist again.
The microscale is described by quantum mechanics. which is the physics of the smallest scale objects from the subatomic to the atomic and beyond. At the quantum level, the concept of energy conservation is explicitly defined. This is illustrated in arguably the most important equation in quantum mechanics.
What does this have to do with space?
Well, it's a presupposition, an assumption. It's almost like Matthew learns. Well, of course I have to assume the Earth is a globe. So these guys are assuming the universe, and they've given everything about the universe to us in calculations based on mathematics. None of it is empirical. So now they have to make the laws of nature somehow not contradict their mathematics and these calculations. So the assumption, so when he says, everything we know about the universe, well, what does that mean? Did you get that from empirical research? Oh, no, it's just our imaginations of Einstein and general relativity and mathematics. So now we got to match reality to that. Well, we'll see how you get on.
Well, the thing is the laws of nature themselves aren't empirical because you can't falsify them. They're laws of nature. So he's going to run into what he's detailing now is the law of nature or the calculation to describe a law of nature that he's going to contradict. So he's got to put it out there in the headline. You know what I mean?
Yep.
The Schrödinger equation. This equation is all about energy. It shows that the total energy is equal to kinetic energy plus potential energy. Energy is conserved, according to this equation. This is just one example, but we can invoke.
You see the V in the equation?
Shows that the total.
You see that? That'd be volume, wouldn't it?
Uh-oh.
So, okay, so far, he's referencing something that requires a volume in order to calculate it. Okay, we'll go with that.
Energy is equal to kinetic energy plus potential energy. Energy is conserved, according to this equation. This is just one example, but we can invoke other equations as well in order to show that the energy is explicitly conserved.
But all we're doing with these equations is describing things. That's all maths does. It's just a language. So when he says we're going to infer, that sounds like it's not going to go well for you.
In quantum mechanics. So there's no problem at micro scales. Now let's look at the largest.
No problem with what? Describing it with maths? What would there be a problem with? Some description. It's either valid or invalid in terms of how we describe things. If it's describing things that we experience in physical reality, we can quantify and verify how well it's described them. So no, there's not going to be an issue so far with describing things in mathematics.
But there was an issue. The V was the issue. But by saying there is no issue, it's like, you know, the Black Knight getting his arm cut off and denying he just cut his own arm, you know, that his arm was just cut off.
I'm happy he didn't. We can't call malice yet because I've pointed that V out. He's saying there's no problem.
Scales. The best tool we have to describe objects at the largest scales, such as the Earth, Sun, and galaxies.
Hold on. Earth, Sun, and galaxies by scale in Kepler's idea of an orbital motion. No, again, you're working outside the conventions that have been given to you by the church in this instance. Then quantify how much of stuff we've got? No, that's unreasonable. That's working outside of the convention given to you to figure out when things will occur in terms of time, duration, and elapsed movements of those stars for things like Easter, when it'll come, based on the star positions. But now to work outside that convention and qualify it differently with maths, to infer the physics of our world, is totally unreasonable. We don't tolerate that here.
Is Einstein's theory of general relativity.
Shocking that the next words out of his mouth were the reified fourth-dimensional pseudo-geometry of Einstein. What a shock.
The core of this theory is represented by Einstein's field equations, which in its simplified form looks like this.
Got its problems. Gonna go through those, I wonder. Will he go through the problems?
discussed this in several videos in the past, but let me do a quick recap.
Got fourth dimensional pseudo-Riemannian space-time bent in a third dimensional representation on a 2D screen currently occurring below this equation. Where's the fourth dimension in this? Anybody see a fourth dimension on screen? Because I see a 2D image on my projection screen representing a 3D presentation of a bent claimed to be pseudo 4D space-time. This is a bent geodesic in space-time. It's not. It's a line on a 2D screen that looks a bit 3D. But it's definitely not the fourth dimension that I'm looking at here, is it, ladies and gentlemen? But he's alluding to this three-dimensional drawing being fourth dimensional bent geodesic in space-time, because that's where he's got his ideas from Kepler working in conjunction with Einstein's maths. Yet you're working outside of these conventions, my friend. It's a very poor show. It shows that you don't really understand them, because if you did, you'd know how pseudo they are, like we do.
The left side describes the curvature of space-time. The right side represents the
Called it.
Matter and energy contained in space-time.
Notice he's pointing to space-time. Fourth dimensional pseudo time bending. That's a geodesic in space-time. Why have you got an arrow pointing to a bent line that's alluding on a 2D screen to being a 3D bent line? That's not bent pseudo 4 space-time, my friend. You're just a liar, or thick, or ignorant. I'm going to call ignorant, because you've drawn an arrow to it, because in your mind, what, is this bent space-time? This is not bent space-time, my friend. You don't understand what Einstein was alluding to. Because if you did, you wouldn't be trying to depict it here. You know, like the numpties that drag out a sheet and throw balls on it, and then tell kiddies that that's bent space-time. No, this is definitely not pseudo 4 space, my friend. But you've got arrows pointing at it. Scummy liar, or totally ignorant. I'm going to go with the latter. Just dumb. You just don't understand this stuff as well as flat earthers do. We understand bent geodesics in space-time and how 3D imaginings on 2D screens are not 4D pseudo space-time.
What this equation shows is that
Nathan?
matter...
Yes.
Is there a way that these people could put time in a box or bend it? Isn't it a concept?
Yeah, he's working outside of that concept. The convention of pseudo-geometry, space-time in this instance, is being plastered onto a world he thinks he's got to qualify and quantify mathematically by describing a physical world that isn't real. And when that physical world that isn't real fails in terms of his quantification and qualification for what it does in physical reality, which it's not, he's going to make apologetics by throwing natural law under the bus when all of this falls on its arse. In the meantime, while he's describing his pseudo-reality that we don't live in, he's got representations of pseudo-4 space geometry with 3D drawings on 2D screens. It's sad. Very sad. If he understood this stuff, it wouldn't be as embarrassing, because he'd have found a better way around the fact that he's got a pseudo-geometry and now it fails. So he's got to throw natural laws, which are merely descriptions of how things always occur as we experience them. So these descriptions of as things occur and how we experience them don't occur in this world you're not experiencing. Yeah, all that means is that's not the world we experience. Yeah, we don't experience space-time and orbits. None of it's real.
Yeah, but if you say it enough times, like gravity, 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 people, space-time, 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 and it comes with a moniker of a scientist or a university, people who are busy living life think that they've discovered something, it's physical, it's real, and this is the trick. How many times has the explanation of gravity changed?
Right on the
And now we're
title.
going to go...
It's right on the title. Pseudo-Riemannian 4 space. The 4 space is the fourth dimensional aspect of time with bent geodesics represented in a 3D picture on a 2D screen right now. That's what he's doing. Wow, Godzilla, man. Big spender. Shout out to you for the super chat. It says, from the chat to the panel. I'm going to keep all of the money. We love you guys. I'm still keeping all the money. Thank you for the super chat. Really need it. So poor. Anyway, let's not get into that.
and energy affects the curvature of space-time. This curvature is what we perceive as gravity.
Really? We don't even perceive pseudo-4 space-time, let alone it being gravity. So the bent geodesic in a 3D representation on a 2D screen of a 4D pseudo-geometry is gravity? No, my friend. Absolutely not. Only exists in the maths. Definitely doesn't exist on this screen. Isn't physical.
And the curvature of space-time affects matter and energy.
No, it doesn't. Pseudo-geometry
So
doesn't
funny
affect
that
physical reality. Go ahead.
They can't even show us the physical curve of the Earth, but we're supposed to see this curvature of a concept. These people, they just say this stuff. The fact that they believe it is just astounding to me.
Well,
They
in
just-
all fairness, it is the best explanation for why everything falls down.
But everything doesn't fall down.
All right, that's true. So, but it's the
Timing is
best
everything.
explanation
Chocolate, well
for-
done.
They're not mutually inclusive, though, are they, Chocolate? John's right. Admittedly, not everything falls down. But if you want the best explanation as to why things fall down, the most
Yeah, that's
beautiful.
what I'm saying.
No,
So the
no,
best
no, that's perfect.
explanation is to
Nobody's
give
acknowledging
physical
Adam when he's got
quality-
the most sensible things to say. Absolutely correct, Adam. Now, nobody's saying that we experience all of the seasons in the same place all at once. But if you want to know how those seasons work in Narnia, then we can give you the explanation for that. I mean, obviously, there's going to be natural laws violated along the way, and they're just descriptions of how things exist and how we describe them existing around us. But that's not how it works in Narnia, and we'll get to that, won't we, Adam?
But if you want the best explanation about Narnia, as crap as and nonsensical and not based in fact, the best explanation is to go to C.S. Lewis. And if you want the prettiest explanation as to why all things fall down, even though you know they don't, gravity is the best and prettiest explanation of that non-observed phenomena.
I'll plug Phuket Word's recent video. He did a really good job going through this in a very Phuket Word way. So shout out to you, Nick. Check out Phuket Word's most recent video. I don't know if someone can dig out a link for it. I can't at a pinch. But he actually got in touch with me after the fact. He said, "Love your comment on the gravity/reference frame video, Nathan. Actually, it was your rant the other day that inspired the content. Hopefully those that get to the end will understand the point." Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Great job, by the way, Nick. I really enjoyed that video. I watched it from beginning to end, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. So, yeah, hence my comment on that video. But, yeah, I basically said that it was an outrage because you're all idiot lickspittle and don't understand that the ground's falling away at 9.8 meters per second, and it's obviously demonstrated by the clouds. And when we talk about things that do fall, that's the opposing force of the upward bias that we experience when the ground's falling away, forcing the clouds up there to be up there. And if you want a further demonstration, I mean, I could chuck a bottle out of a window filled with various different gases if you want. But, ultimately I don't need to do that because the clouds are right there staring at you right in the face, letting you know that the ground's falling away. So anything that you want to put up against that in regards to why all things don't go down when most things around me right now aren't doing anything. But the clouds are definitely there, proving that the ground's falling away. And this is not an extraordinary claim. It is merely here for us to offer it up in false dichotomy against the globe, all things go down claim, so that we can have a fair fight with them. Because the ground's falling down, that's why the clouds go up. Anything that's contrary to that is the opposition force that would force it down, with the ground falling with it, because of the extreme force up that holds the clouds there. So, like I say, I can chuck a bottle out of a window if you want me to with some gases in it. If that's what you need to prove the ground's falling away, then I can do that. But if you need that, you're dumb and lickspittle, then, I don't know what's wrong with you, really. Anyway.
What the hell did I just listen to?
It's where you take and create a phenomenon and give an explanation for that phenomenon, even though that phenomenon does not exist in nature.
Yeah, I could just invent any old crazy shit. Ground falling away, why not? Sliding sideways, who cares? I can just say it's true and then give an example so that I can affirm the consequent thereafter. Ground sliding sideways, therefore here's my shitty example. Throws bottle out of a car window. See? Carl? Bottle thrown out of it. Therefore ground moving sideways. I mean, don't you get it? Lickspittle. What's wrong with you?
Well, as long as you don't make that conclusion, I guess we can go with that then.
Oh, if I don't make the conclusion, it's not even a begging the question fallacy. Ground moving sideways, bottle gets chucked out of the window. I don't have to say anything else. No conclusion is even needed, and I didn't even beg the question. I'm just going to shout these super chats out. Sorry, guys. Shout out to Blue Ridge Ranger, who says, I don't think they understand the gravity of the situation. I agree, Blue Ridge Ranger. They definitely don't understand the gravity of the ground falling away. I mean, just look at the clouds, my friend, and you'll understand the gravity of this situation. Oh, by the way, the ground falling down, I'm calling that gravity. Why not? I mean, we've got 4 already. What's a 5th going to hurt? Relative density is the best explanation of why things fall down. Things fall down. Some things fall down, James Richard. Some things go up. Like the clouds, proving the ground's falling down. I mean, what's wrong with you, bloody lick spittle? Thanks for the super chat.
That was the next thing I was going to say. Now, if you want to know why everything falls down, gravity is the most eloquent explanation for that. But if you want to know why things fall, rise, or remain neutral in nature, then relative density disequilibrium is the best answer.
And uppity is the best answer if you want to know why shit's hanging around in the sky. I mean, bloody hell, everything's going up. You've got balloons, helium balloons, clouds, astronauts. All this shit is only up there because the ground's falling. You know, why else would men be flying in clouds floating around up there? It's because the ground's falling away from you. I'm telling you. You're all idiots.
I'm down with uppity.
Uppity is obvious to all of us that understand this stuff. It's not an outrageous claim that I've got no evidence for. It's not just here for me to offer up as a false dichotomy against gravity as a 9.8 meters per second downward bias that has a 0 effect when you're in fault arrest. You know, because obviously if you pick something up and drop it, they say it's because stuff's going to the ground with a gravity force that's pulling it. I say no. It's the reverse effect of everything being forced up as the ground goes down, and that counter positive, kind of a bit like relative density disequilibrium. But if you employ that, when something goes up, something's got to be forced down. And that's why it can still reach the ground if it's nice and heavy. But ultimately, the ground's falling away. Not an outrageous claim, not just here for false dichotomy against globe gravity. It's just obvious.
Who or what is lick spittle?
You, if you don't understand the ground's falling away from you. What's wrong with you, man?
Hey, you concave earthers would love that. The ones that believe that they're inside a sphere, the ground forms a sphere. That would be great for them. You should probably offer that as an idea for them to pick up and push, because that goes right in the center.
And I'm sorry, gravity is not the best explanation. Earth rising upwards is the best explanation.
Neil, you're just not paying attention. That's going to get you in trouble immediately. That's not what he said. It's an incomplete statement. Gravity's not just the best explanation. End statement from Neil. The best explanation for why listen carefully, all things fall down. Just having a look at that cloud while I'm saying that statement. So the reason all things fall down and how that is explained, looks at clouds, is gravity. The best way to explain all things falling down, Neil. That's what he actually said.
Okay, sorry, I missed that.
Gravity is perfect.
Yeah. If you want to know why all things go down, gravity's wicked. Awesome. If you want to know why all things go up, as they obviously do, then the ground falling away is a wicked explanation.
That's uppity, right? Or free floatity.
Obviously, free floatity. I've forgotten what we called it now. Free float. Free float. Free float's an excellent explanation for why all things go up. The tendency for things to go up it needs explaining. And I'm going to take all the credit. Free float is just, needs explaining. Not all things are falling unless you pick them up. But ultimately speaking, they're going to be resisting the down force of the ground moving down as the ground forces the air up. Well, the balance that's achieved to push it back onto the ground is only in effect because of stuff rushing upwards, because the ground is going down. I mean, this seems so obvious to me. Do I have to get a bottle out and chuck it out of a car? I mean, I will, if that's what needs to be done. Oh, God.
Would it be better exampled by all things go west, right? You can look at the stars and see that all things are moving west.
Go west, life is peaceful there.
I haven't had a free float since A&W root beer.
You guys are not doing any demonstrations. Hold on. Oh, good one, Ken. You're not doing practical demonstrations like Dallas. So stop mocking it.
Two things. Number one, Sleeping Warrior's just joined. He has done a scientific experiment to validate something which we have no claim in. If you hear the claim in terms of the phenomena, some things go down, some things go up, some things remain neutral. Yeah? That is a semi-neutral claim in and of itself. We're not saying there's any directionality to assert. It varies depending on what? Well, you'd have to figure that out. Well, it's dependent on the medium. You vary the medium, you can change the vector of something in terms of its directionality, down, up, or neutral. Well, yeah, we have a practical demonstration for that, but we don't have a positive claim. Yeah, it's fascinating to figure out why some things go down, some things go up, some things remain neutral. But after debunking that there isn't an always in effect downward force because we need to be stuck to the side of a spinning water ball, we don't actually need to defend anything here, as much as Anthony is here and can back it with scientific validity. It's not just a demonstration. I'm not just chucking a bottle out of a window, right? There's a very high standard that's been attained for no reason, because we don't have a claim. Nothing to defend here.
Well, if Anthony was to defend it, the argument would be over easy.
It would be.
Oh, that's a good one.
But I could invent an outrageous claim of the ground falling away and then employ some of those effects described with relative density disequilibrium, i.e., the stuff that's being forced up because the ground's falling away from it would have the equal and opposite effect for something that's more dense than it go down, proving that we've got a downward falling Earth. In other words, I don't back my outrageous claim, I just hijack something that hasn't got any real truth when it comes to my outrageous downward Earth claim, but I can utilise it to make my affirming the consequent work. And if you're stupid and don't recognise an affirming the consequent fallacy, you'll watch a bottle tossed out of a car and go, yeah, Earth's moving up, or down, or sideways, or whatever outrageous shit I want to make up on the spot today.
This is
I did have a reason for joining, Nathan. Check this. I was watching a program on like Discovery type program. I don't know what channel, it doesn't matter, but it was talking about how bodies are disposed of at sea or in water bodies. And there's a critical depth where a body, once it's dropped to, it can never come back. Even if it starts to decompose and creates gases inside and all that, it can't come back. And I was thinking about it, and I was thinking, I wonder why that would be. And I started to realize that as the depth increases, the pressure also increases. So the body's kind of like a Cartesian diver, but as the pressure increases, the air inside the lungs is squeezed out. So that relatively speaking, relative to the medium, the body, the cadaver, is getting more dense because the air inside is getting squeezed out. The volume is reducing. The body's becoming more dense. So you would perceive it as you're gaining speed because you appear to be getting heavier. What's actually happening is you're reducing your volume, and the gas, the buoyant gas, is no longer in your lungs, and you can't get back out once you're in that position. And I just thought, what a brilliant example of relative density there, disposing of a dead body. Don't want to plant any seeds, just wanted to put that out there.
You've been getting rid of bodies in the Mersey again then, Tony?
Yeah, he has a way of lowering the tone, doesn't he? There's always something.
No, but it's true. Research it. Why is it that the body goes down in the way that it does?
Let's not have it again. Thank you.
It is the Cartesian diver example.
Once is enough. That's brilliant. Thank you, Anthony. I'm so glad you joined.
If the analogy of a guy driving a car throwing a bottle out and the result is Earth is moving up, we need to check the alcohol content in that bottle, please.
The mafia was way out of hand.
Anyway, throw me right off, Faz. Right off.
Let's get back to the video.
Didn't the mafia attach rocks to the bodies, though?
Yeah, they just wanted to make sure.
That was the secondary point. That's why you've got to weigh the body down, because if you don't weigh the body down, initially it might sink, right? Depending on what your muscle over fat content or ratio is. You might get the body to sink initially, but as the body starts filling up with gas, it'll rise to the top. So you've got to put weight on it. Why is that? Because obviously, as it's filling up with gas, it increases the volume. It becomes more, they would say, more buoyant. We're saying, well, you're increasing the volume, you're changing the relative density, right? And that was the other point. So there was a secondary point, Nathan. So it wasn't just about the the critical depth, it was also about why you've got to put weight on it too.
Don't appeal to me.
Well,
This is Neil's area.
I got your back, Tony.
Neil, this is your moment.
But that,
This is where you go, yeah, that's exactly how it is.
14th Street Northwest.
yeah, you gotta put the cement shoes on first.
Well, between Neil and Anthony, I think the argument is well cemented.
Neil, can you say that again?
But then you have concrete boots in New York.
Yeah, you
say it
have
again with it. Say it again with an Italian accent, Neil.
What they did was they
Oh my
put your
God.
feet in buckets. They filled it with cement. When the cement hardened, you got chucked over the side.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, but that's still a red herring though, because you're not dealing with the like if you're trying to argue with somebody with why that body is falling down to the bottom of the ocean, you're not addressing their presupposition of everything going down.
That's the beauty of it, though, John, because it is a red herring, right? They don't make that argument, but we do make that explanation to our people on our side that think, I don't know, that there's an incoherent dielectric acceleration point. It's an explanation from our perspective, but it's completely nothing to do with the ball earthers, because it's beyond their arguments, it's beyond their scope, beyond their knowledge and intelligence. It's just our explanation for what actually is going on. Nothing to do with gravity and buoyancy.
But see, the Ethereans have a downward bias as well, and that's why they have ether, is to explain why everything falls down. So they're having that red herring with gravity. We stand outside of that when we talk about relative density, because they're trying to explain why everything falls down. We're not doing that.
We step outside of that completely. It is why it's a red herring, because they don't make any arguments for it, but we can demonstrate. At the end of the day, relative density is the only scientific experiment that demonstrates why things go up and down, not just down, up and down. Because the egg went up, didn't it? That we know why. Adding a little bit of salt, wiggling that independent variable.
Well, just to transition to the video between John and Neil. Now, next time I go deep sea fishing, I know how to chum for red herrings.
Indeed. Rinsler, shout out. He says, off topic. The so-called Chinese spy balloon that flew over USA looks suspiciously like the International Space Station. Lol. Maybe. I didn't notice that myself, Rinsler, but really appreciate the super chat. Thank you very much indeed for the support. And also, did I miss one? I swore I missed a super chat. Did I? James Richard, relative density is the best explanation of why things fall down. No, we did cover that. No, we've covered everybody. Perfect. Okay, with that, I am going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Primary Streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So, another massive thank you to both Discord and G+ panels.
It's not merely an explanation. It's scientific. You're diluting it. I'm offended.
Okay, before you get too offended, Nathan, what minute mark are you on the video?
4 minutes and 26 seconds, but we can carry on a bit if you want.
No, let's save it, because Anthony does it again. He comes in, and he's clever, man. He comes in, changes the whole talk, and then you end the show. And this was supposed to be one solid stream on that video.
No, that's not fair. I came in because Nathan said words to the effect of relative density is the only explanation or the best explanation for why shit moves up and down. That was why I joined. I didn't change the topic. I just added to it.
I'm not saying this one occasion. It's just there's a history. Whenever you come in, whatever we're talking about gets canned.
No, I don't agree. I think I joined and I refined or made better. I don't think I changed.
Oh, I applaud you for it. You have refined the method. Yes.
Is it a all right, Anthony, is it a logical argument to argue gravity against relative density disequilibrium?
No,
is that a logical argument?
Not at all, because relative density creates the force that they thought was gravity, and gravity is not a force. It's just it's a case of mistaken identity, isn't it? What they did with phlogiston is the same as what they do with gravity. They thought phlogiston was a matter of an element that was in combustible materials, and then they realized it was actually in the medium around the combustible materials that makes it burn, not within the matter itself. Well, gravity is the same. They think that it's an innate matter of matter, and it's actually the medium around it. It's a direct equivalence.
Right. Okay. So if you're arguing with someone who's asserting gravity, bringing up relative density would be a red herring at that point.
It would be a debunk, not a red herring. A debunk.
Is relative density disequilibrium explaining why everything goes down?
No, it's proving why things go up and down. Experimentally, scientifically.
So it's a red herring then.
No, it's a
Because you're not
debunk.
dealing with their claim. Because their claim
it's a
is
debunk.
everything. You're not listening.
I am.
You don't
I'm
have
not
to make. It's not a debunk. No, because you're not addressing their claim. Everything goes down.
But it
But their
doesn't.
but their
Here's the
claim is
proof that
wrong.
shows it. The egg
I don't
went up,
understand.
John. Why is that not a debunk?
Let me just
Because
try.
you're not addressing their claim.
Anthony. So you're offering an alternative explanation without addressing the initial claim at its face value. So rather than starting with the phenomena, hold on, Anthony. So rather than starting with the phenomena and utilizing the phenomena itself to debunk their claim, you're moving through the phenomena, and then you have the opponent juxtaposing their claim that all things go down with your phenomena of some things go up, some things remain neutral, some things go down, and they're not the same. So where John's saying you're going wrong is by just not saying not all things go down.
Yeah, and I accept that. But I don't think only a retard would really argue that you're failing to argue. And I don't mean this in an offensive way, John, forgive me. But if you're going to say that I'm not dealing with the point when they say everything goes down, and I go, here's an egg that goes up, and we know why. Look, add a bit of salt, manipulate, wiggle that independent variable, then I am debunking the claim by showing A, nothing goes down, or some things go up, and I'm showing the reason for why. It's not the imaginary woo-woo Narnia force, is it? I'm doing two things at once. It's not a false equivalence. It's not a red herring. It is directly debunking the claim.
Hold on. No, because everything is going down, some things are pushed up, like your egg, when you change the density.
That's because you don't understand what the independent variable is.
Yeah, we can talk about all the directions you want to take this red herring, but
no,
because everything
John,
is
what is a red
down,
herring? What is a
it's
red
something
herring?
that has surface level relevance, but it's not addressing the point at hand.
But I don't agree that it's not addressing the point. It's directly addressing the point. Fundamentally, it's debunking it. That's not a red herring.
It's so relative density is explaining why everything goes down.
No, it's proven that not everything does go down, and it shows the reason for why.
You don't have to prove that. You can look outside. What are you talking about?
So if I don't have to prove it, but I do prove it, then it's not a red herring, is it? It's a debunk.
No, you just look outside. It's not a debunk. It's an explanation for what we see outside, but you're talking about Narnia. Why are you trying to apply it to Narnia?
You're diluting its significance. It's not an explanation. It is a practical, scientific, validated, verified, repeatable by everybody in a classroom experiment to prove that it's not everything going down. Some things go up. It's a debunk, John, not a red herring.
Hold on, let me just try. Hello. What you're saying is you're using one of those, those trucks that produce a huge amount of electricity with a massive generator on it, like to power a concert. You've got one of them with the biggest supply of electricity you can to a pneumatic hammer to put in a Phillips head screw. That's what you're doing. So you've gone to the extremes of using the scientific validity which you can offer when the premise itself is debunked by just looking outside. So all things go down is their claim. What about those clouds? That's the end of the argument.
I do have a criticism of the clouds point, though. You can argue that a cloud is not.
Before you do, the scientific method explains the hows and the whys. Explains. Calling it an explanation is not taking away from its validity, Anthony. It's a word.
Say that first line. Say that first sentence again.
The scientific method helps us elucidate the hows and the whys.
No, the cause of the effect. You've diluted what the scientific method does.
It doesn't answer how and why questions?
It identifies the cause of an effect.
Okay. How does it do that?
By manipulating the independent variable, the presumed cause of an effect.
You're talking about the experimental part of it, aren't you?
I'm talking about scientific method, the thing that you cited.
Yes, right. But that's you have to have a how or why question to answer.
Yeah.
You can't do science on something without the how or why question. So anything in response to a how or why question is an explanation.
No. If you want to try and explain something, you don't talk about scientific method. You give an equivalence. But if you want to prove the cause of an effect,
you're not explaining anything.
Yeah, you are with an equivalence. That's why the equivalence principle confuses the fuck out of everybody, because it's explanatory.
Don't introduce that. That's not science. The equivalence principle is a principle. We're not talking about principles. Why are you introducing that?
It's designed to confuse the fuck out of everybody by explanation.
No. Okay. When you explain changing the density of the medium, well, you can't use explain.
I agree.
Because you said it's
to
not
use
an
the word
explanation. So don't use words then.
I didn't. I used the word cause. You used the word explanation, and I don't agree with the use of the word explanation because it's not. It's diluting what's actually being demonstrated. It's not explanation. It's causing, John. You're doing me a disservice. You're doing us a disservice, and you're doing yourself a disservice.
That is ignorant. No, I'm not.
No, it's not ignorance. It's directing. It's addressing why you're wrong. You are diluting the independent variable. You're saying it's merely explanatory. It's causative. It's not the same.
Okay, let me try.
Well,
hold on, John. He's just not picking up what you're putting down. He's saying that by offering up an explanation, by going that one step beyond and offering true scientific validity to an explanation of why this causes that, it is an explanation. It's an explanation of why this will cause that in your supposition. So why the density, when varied, will cause the vector change. Well, that's an explanation for the vector change, the phenomena that you're observing. Okay, so now we've got that under our belts. We hopefully won't cover that again. But what you're not picking up is your explanation when offered at the end of the process of scientific validity, seemingly for our opponent, offers an explanation for a supposition that all things go down, when that supposition is debunked just by looking out the window. So offering explanation for something that is self-evidently not true gives them fuel to attack your position against their position that all things go down, because it essentially hasn't been addressed. It's seemingly addressed in the phenomena, but if you don't focus on that, you focus on the experimental outcome, you're just focusing on the explanation for all things going down if it's not addressed. Does that make sense, Anthony?
Yeah, but I don't agree that just looking out the window is the debunk itself, because when you give clouds as
okay, let's talk about that. Okay, so the statement is that we've got gravity, a force that's holding things to the ground, and the force, if we're just going to talk, not going to get into the pseudo, no, it's not a force, any of that, just what Normie thinks is happening is there's a force of down holding us to the ground. Would you agree, just so we can move forward in the discussion, Anthony?
Agreed.
Okay, so if I take that as read, I have a supposition that all things go down to defend against at this point in the discussion. Would you agree?
Say that again.
At the point that we concur that your position is irrelevant at this stage, we're just clarifying my Normie Globe claim that there's always an effect downward force. You agreed for the sake of discussion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. Well, at that point, that's a positive assertion that all things go down. That is all that needs to be addressed at this stage.
I agree.
Okay. If I look out the window and show that not all things go down, would you say that I've achieved that?
No, because I don't agree that a cloud
But the statement is all things go down with a downward force towards the ground, always in effect down.
I don't agree with your comment that you can just look out the window, because, like, tell me something that goes up when you look out the window.
So not always down. So therefore, to show something going up debunks the statement that always down is in effect force of down. I can debunk that just by showing it's not the case.
I think you misheard what I just said. Let me re-say it, because what you answered didn't address my point. I said, if you look out the window, show me something that goes up.
Clouds.
Right. So my rebuttal to that is, what is a cloud? Is it something with intermolecular bonds and is a solid object? Or
Wow.
is it
Red
something
herring
that's
away
not?
from it.
Is it something that's not
but
an
the question
object?
is, do all things go down? Because I'm addressing that specifically. But so the only
don't think
question that
cloud-
Anthony, the only question that needs to be asked is, does that debunk the assertion that all things go down or not? Not what is it? Is
No,
it going?
it doesn't.
Anthony, you're just cutting off every sentence. Yeah, the question is, in response to a statement that all things go down, is that going down or not? The cloud.
Right. So when we define that, you define that as a cloud, and I say no. A cloud is not an inanimate. It's not a concrete noun. What is a cloud, Nathan?
Yeah, it's a concrete noun.
You don't think cloud is a
It's not a concrete noun. A cloud is not a concrete noun.
Wow. That's where you
cloud
have
is
to
not-
take it. Is that where you have to take it to keep gravity?
Well, unless you've got a better example of something going up, a concrete noun requires it to be a physicality, right? What is a cloud? Tell me what a cloud is.
Fine. Helium balloon.
Well, no,
Helium balloon's a better
no,
example,
no.
yeah.
Hold on. You're confusing concrete noun with
solid.
It's solid, yeah. That's not
Right,
what
so
a concrete
give me an
noun
example
is.
of a concrete
You don't
noun
know
that's
what
not solid
the
then.
word you're using in the context you're using it in.
Let me just answer him.
Give me an
He
example
said,
of a
give me an
concrete
example
noun
of
that's
a
not-
concrete noun that's not a solid.
Not solid.
Okay, Anthony,
How
you've
about
got to
this?
pause. Yeah, you said give me an example of a concrete noun that's not solid. Okay, just give me 1 second. Cloud.
Yeah, it's not a concrete noun.
Yeah, it
What
is.
is a cloud?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
it is.
It
In
isn't. What is a
cloud.
concrete?
In cloud.
What is a concrete noun and what is a cloud?
A concrete
It's a
noun.
cloud.
Water,
It's a thing.
liquid water.
Liquid water. No, it's not that. We need to be more precise. What is a cloud?
Liquid water is not concise enough for you.
Right, a cloud is
Yeah,
not a lake in
you're
the sky, is
desperate.
it? A cloud
You're
is not a
desperate
lake
to
in the
turn
sky.
this into a debunk instead of just dealing with the issue.
Happy belated Father's Day to
Okay,
everybody.
the
but
thing
can I
that
interject,
defines
please,
it,
real quick?
Anthony.
If-
Sorry,
if-
whoever that is.
if-
D Rose. Bear
I'm
with
sorry,
me.
it's me, the original D Rose.
Just 1 second, D Rose.
I just wanted to say something. Okay, good.
Just bear with me. What makes it concrete is it not being abstract, Anthony.
It's not concrete, though, is it?
Yeah, it doesn't have
You
to be
can see
solid.
it.
It's not.
The only
Okay, Anthony.
right. The
Okay,
only
Anthony.
the only part of a
Anthony.
cloud.
Oh, God. Hey, right. If I conjure the idea of a sixth dimensional state, yeah.
No, false equivalence.
I haven't finished yet.
No, it's a red herring. It's a no. If you're
I
going
haven't
to take
finished
it into
my
the sixth
example. I've got
dimension-
4 words out, and you're telling me it's a red herring. I haven't finished.
It's a sixth dimensional example. How can it not be a red herring?
To be juxtaposed with something else that's concrete.
Right, yeah, but you're missing the point.
Well, I haven't
Clouds
made
are
it
not
yet.
concrete.
I haven't made my point yet. So we've got something that's imaginary or described abstract in maths, like pseudo-4 space-time. Abstract doesn't exist in physical terms. Yeah? Well, that's when you imagine it to be real, is hypothesization, or the fallacy of misplaced concretedness. Well, a cloud isn't being misplaced as concrete. Concrete meaning in existence, physically. Clouds are real. To say cloud makes it a concrete noun. It doesn't have to be a solid state to make it concrete.
It doesn't need to be concrete to be concrete.
Are you done? Can I
Yeah.
respond, or do I need? Right, a cloud is not a concrete noun. Why? Tell me why. Tell me why a
Because
cloud
you
is
can
concrete
say
noun.
a or the in front of it. Yes, it is a concrete noun.
That's just fucking retarded. Okay, you can believe that. Cloud,
In any event,
is not
regardless,
a concrete noun.
who cares? Okay, Anthony says it's not a concrete noun. Okay, fine. Either way, Anthony, there's a cloud. It's not going down, so it undoes the assertion that all things go down. It's just that simple. Doesn't matter if you say
but
it's physical or not.
It's a bad example. it's a bad example to use because a cloud isn't a concrete noun and it's not a good thing to use to make points.
Hey, hold on. Listen to the red herring, though.
Let me give you an
Listen to
alternative.
the red herring.
Why
If
don't you
the-
look it
if
up
the
in
claim-
Okay, everyone
Hold
stop
on,
getting
hold
triggered.
on.
Hello, hello, hello.
Cloud.
Got Arvin and John talking at the same time. Can't hear either of you. When Anthony's trying to make an alternative example for us. Feel free, Anthony.
Right. A concrete noun is something that physically exists, right? The only thing that a cloud is millions of droplets of condensate. That's all it is. It's held together by, what are they called? London forces, right? That's all they are. So it's basically like lots of droplets all held together with intermolecular forces that are very, very weak, but there's something more to it than it appears because they shouldn't hold a shape, but they do. So clouds are not a good example to use for a concrete noun. A helium balloon is better, but it's a man-made object. But we need something that's physical. Fuck's sake.
Dude,
the red herring. The claim
has bounds between
the
it.
claim is
Right,
always
you get
go down.
Owen, you
not
make it.
offended
Owen,
when I
Owen,
interrupt
Owen.
you.
Hello.
When you
Got
interrupt me,
three
I can't
people
say that
talking
that's
at
an interruption.
once.
Right,
Thanks,
yeah,
Owen.
because I was fucking talking.
Yeah, well, we've got Arvin and you. It's bad enough with you cutting everyone's conversation off. If John talks, then Arvin decides to talk through John,
This is
and you're
ridiculous.
cutting everybody off.
Fuck you.
This is
talking,
yeah,
and then
still the
George
host
told me
talking.
to
Thank you,
talk.
Arvin.
Yeah, get the order right.
Yeah, I can get
Right,
an
I
order
can't
together.
talk because I get criticised.
Yeah, I
But John
can't get
can
any
talk,
order
and if I
together if
interrupt him,
none of
it's
you
an
will
interruption.
respect
But if
shutting
he
up.
interrupts me, it's not an interruption. And if
Yeah, Anthony, literally, it's reached the point where I've got to mute my own panel. He cannot shut up while I try and get control of the panel. Yeah, I'm trying to get control. No, so he's rather bugger off than let me have a coherent show. Thank you, Anthony, for causing chaos. Thank you, Arvin, for throwing a load of fuel on the fire.
He's the cutting Anthony off.
I apologize. I apologize.
He's just like being solipsistic about this shit. I've seen it before.
Good morning. Good morning. I want to say something real quick. Good morning. Happy Father's Day. Hope everybody had a good one. But I left something in the main chat about what a concrete noun is. I don't know what Anthony is so adamant about trying to make a point, but all it says is a physical thing. When we agree that a bubble, one bubble that my child blows out, has the same pretty much composition as a cloud almost in some kind of ways. But if my child wrote a sentence, Bobby blew the bubble up in the sky, and the teacher asked what was the noun or the concrete noun, she would say Bobby in the bubble. Now, the sky, that can be argumentative, but that even would be considered a noun, but maybe not a concrete noun, but it's a noun. So I don't know where he's getting concrete, like concrete has to be like a brick, a rock, something hard. I don't know what he's getting at, but it just says a physical thing, something that is not abstract, something that is real. You can touch, you can see, something that's real, not something of the mind.
Right.
But
So
see, it's a red herring.
it wouldn't be like the word flowing is a description. It will never be a concrete noun. But river is, because river, even though it's a composition of something else, you can say a or the in front of it. And when you can say a or the in front of it, it's a concrete noun. Finished.
Right.
It's irrelevant. It's all irrelevant.
The cloud was over Bobby's head. Bobby
It's
saw the
irrelevant.
cloud. Bobby saw a cloud.
John's point is the claim all things fall down.
It doesn't say all concrete nouns fall down, does it? Why are we talking about concrete nouns?
Exactly. You're right, John. I'm with you, John. You're right, Refractive. Yep.
He's right. Unicorn farts also fall down, hypothetically speaking.
Right, because it's a or the unicorn fart. That's correct, Nathan, even though it doesn't exist.
Is today Friday? What's
That's
going on?
Monday.
Oh, okay. It's like Freaky Friday or something.
Can we all shout out the computer for doing so well? Well done, computer.
Good job on the computer. I think when you try to get too on these arguments, get to the, for lack of better metaphor, the atomic level, it gets so convoluted. John's point was their claim is all things fall down. Nathan says all you got to do is look up and see that that doesn't happen. So that claim is done. Anthony comes in and wants to take it to another level of understanding, almost like to the atomic level or molecular level. And it's like, what are you talking about? The argument is all things fall down, and we see in reality all things don't fall down. It's over right there. We're trying to end it there, but now we want to go another layer, and then nouns and concrete. It gets convoluted.
Well, it's
You know
worse
what it
than that.
reminds me of?
Can I
You know
say,
what it reminds me
please?
of?
Hey, come on.
I'm going to go
It's
with
worse
no.
because in the globe cosmology, not all things fall down. They think that at some point higher up, things don't fall down. So it is worse than that. They just say it falls down, but it doesn't even do that because it only falls down towards a presupposed center in a very limited amount of space in their cosmology. Ever thought of that?
Well, what did you just say that wasn't covered? The globe claim is all things fall down. You just reiterated that.
Yeah, just agree with him.
But only on the globe. It's not even a universal thing. It's just in this very small space things go down, and down is relative. It's a giant mess.
That's wrong also, because all things pull to the center of the earth.
Yeah, that's down.
Yeah,
but that's
up to a
no,
certain distance.
that's still down relative to your position because it's only ever described relative to your position. So if you're going to describe it, you can only describe it from your position. So if you're antipode or antipodal from a position you've just described down, as you put it, to the center of Earth, and then you go away and describe it again from the other side of a sphere Earth in a sky vacuum, well, you're still describing it as down. That's the whole point.
We go to Discord. Can we go to Discord and start at the top and work our way down, and let's get everyone's take on how the conversation went. Thanks.
Hold on, there's got to be some prefacing. If you can give us a example that's got a hypothetical in it with maybe a juxtaposition alongside, that'd be great too.
Okay, one deck. Is he top one? Let's go.
Seriously.
I'd rather go over 20-second video I got explaining what the
50?
scientific method is.
Who's 50? That name rings a bell.
Fitty.
Is that Fitty? Is that unorthodox, that numpty dipshit?
Maybe.
Yeah, he was asking how to get in.
No way. Unorthodox. You came back? Let me find out.
Right, I'm going to go make a coffee, see if you can get Orthodox attention.
No, what I was going to
Put
say
him
was
in.
that little back and forth between all you guys was almost like the same thing with Rebel, and the same thing before with I forgot what it was the construct. I mean the structure and support.
Shout out to Brian.
It's like that same molecular thing. It always goes down to those little atoms and molecules. Like, do they exist and they're individual, but when they're put together, does that make them a concrete noun? Do that make them a support, a structure, whatever?
Huh?
Remember we were talking about the support and structure, and we were talking about is a gas.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This was almost like that argument. Pretty much the same thing. He doesn't consider
Oh, it's almost
a cloud.
What is almost like that?
Anthony's argument about a cloud not being
Oh,
a concrete noun.
Anthony's take. I got you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We need more
I got
people
you.
in here. We're gonna need somebody else.
I didn't. No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm just saying that's what it reminds me of.
Well, it's important to remember Anthony believes their claim is that all concrete nouns fall down, and only concrete nouns.
Forget about that. I want to talk about Feynman. What happened yesterday? Explain to me, QE.
What do you mean?
What did Feynman do yesterday?
I don't know. You posted something about, I guess it was Flapsoid Stream. They were talking about gas pressure and stuff like that. The gas laws.
Neil, I just woke up. You're gonna have to give me a little bit of context here, okay?
Okay, I'll get what you said to me.
Hold on.
I do want to apologize to Anthony if he's listening. I should have let you get to the end of your red herring. I am sorry.
The problem with that is you're trying to convince the guy who loves arguing about gravity to not argue about it. You want him to just say things, not everything goes down, and just stop there. That's basically what you were trying to get him to do, right?
Well,
To
it's
say
a full
he don't
stop.
have to make a claim. He could just debunk the claim that was given to him, which is all things go down. Right?
Right. It's a full stop end of any argument, though. Why would you want to argue about something that doesn't exist?
I mean, I see what your point was in doing that, but at the same time, the whole time I'm thinking, this is the guy who loves arguing gravity the most. Like, why would you?
No.
Like,
No. What? There's sometimes a point in the argument where you have to really get to grips with what's being claimed and how it works before you can take a step back from the whole argument and go, wow, this is a lot more simple than it first looks. So in this instance, we've got down to the really microscopic level of the argument, and the end result is what Anthony's done. And it is important. You're not wrong, Chocolate. But Anthony's stuck at that point, and he needs to step back from the wood and look at the whole landscape now that he knows what he knows. And the reality is that we've identified the point of the claim being wrong in the first instance. Now, can we go forth and explain it with Anthony Riley's experiment? Yes, if we were challenged to do so, and the person who was asking us was in good humour and, wanted to expand their knowledge, and you felt them worthy of disseminating this essentially useless to the shape and size of Earth argument in that regard. You might want to share that with them, but you didn't need it. Now, you had to go above and beyond to get to the point where you can step back from the whole argument and go, all you need to do is look up at the clouds, and it ends the argument. And Johnny is correct. Now, it's hard to get that across to Anthony, and Anthony's very persistent in his understanding that this argument wholeheartedly and completely debunks their position. And it does. He's not wrong. But we can do it with a lot more finesse than a giant sledgehammer.
and I get all that. I agree completely, except the fact that, again, Anthony is the one that loves this argument, and he's the one that performed that experiment. So why wouldn't he want to go forth and just explain what he's got?
I'll tell you why. Because at the end of that road, the best case scenario you can hope for is the cause for everything going down is relative density disequilibrium. That's the best you can hope for if you don't deal with the presupposition at hand.
But what if the presupposition was dealt with from the get-go by proving that not everything goes down?
Then you wouldn't get to the experiment. Then you wouldn't get to the experiment that Anthony wants to use. Then you wouldn't even get there. That's the point. Then it's done, right? That's the end then, isn't it, Chocolate?
Yeah, I guess so.
Right. Well, Anthony wants to hold on to it because he's got... Well, let's not divine his motivation. That's a bit unfair. I don't know why he wants to cling on to this, but he does, and it's not unreasonable to do so. But there's been many a point in debate where people, a fundy, have come on, started arguing for gravity, and I refuse to take it to that extent, because once you've debunked the assertion that all things go down, I don't have to offer them an alternative explanation, because there's nothing to have an alternative for. I don't have a positive claim. So if I'm not offering up a positive claim to defend, why should I offer them up the experiment in respect to relative density disequilibrium? I just squash their positive assertion and move on with my life. Fascinating though the explanation that's been provided with scientific validity is, it's nice to know. Do I have a practical application for it? No, I may, and there obviously is practical application for it. But I'm saying in respect to the debate about the nature of Earth, it's then moot because you've already debunked their claim that all things go down. They don't.
Right. To even get there, first you have to accept that the positive claim made in the first place is not true. Everything goes down. So once that's conceded, why are you arguing past that?
Exactly.
Because people argue differently. Like, I understand your point, because if that was me, that's where I'd stop. Not everything goes down. That's it.
Yep.
It's done. Your claim is done.
Well, then
But
at that
I'm
point,
not
you're
Anthony.
you're
You
the
know what I'm
advanced.
saying?
Well, you're in the advanced seat at that point. You know the argument. You know about the egg. You understand that you can offer up cause and effect relationships with scientific validity at that point, right, Chocolate? But knowing where to stop is as much a skill as knowing all the arguments. Knowing when to stop. It's the same with selling. Once you've got the person with a soft close to admit that they want to purchase the item you've sold them, stop giving them features, stop giving them benefits, stop giving them the sales pitch. Take them to the till and take their money from them. And taking them to the till and taking their money off them is the equivalent of saying, so will not all things go down? Okay, that's the end of that argument. And knowing that that's where you stop.
Right. You don't want to oversell something to them. Like after they buy the car, you don't want to go back and try to resell them the same car, do you? What would be the point in that?
Number one failure in sales, commission sales, is nerves. And people keep talking and talking and talking. They've already made the sale, as Nathan says. They got the soft closed questions out. The guy's nodding. The wife says, I like this. You get 6 or 7 of those, you can bring out the contract. Okay, but what happens is they don't know how to shut up. So they keep talking and talking. And then the person says, I'm not buying from this guy.
I know about that because once I decided to buy it, stop talking to me. Just let me buy it and leave.
Yeah, it's human nature to overtalk, and because they want to buy from me. Let me tell you some more things about this, and then next thing you know, they change their mind.
You know,
Most of the time, I didn't want them talking to me in the first place. That's why it's like, what the hell, man? Get away.
The sad thing about all this is if we existed in a different paradigm, Anthony would be up for the Nobel Prize.
True.
Instead, we're pointing out that he's overdoing it. Aren't we pricks? Oh,
Well,
Anthony,
it's like,
you don't have to overdo it, mate. Come on. Not all things go down. Just stop there.
That's just kicking the horse, right? While it's already on the ground.
Anthony will be back. We love Anthony. It was mainly the over-talking that I objected to.
If you want to have fun and kick the can down the road more, then you allow begging the question, and you like a cat with a laser, making a chase of laser, going nuts in your living room. Anthony likes that. So he's like, all right, well, that's fine.
Speaking of begging the question, any Globers in Discord want to come on and tell us how flat it is? Flat Earth is?
I wanted to offer them some quotes and see what their response to Matthew Learns was. If we get some ballers on, I'm going to rattle off some quotes, see what they think.
I'm lost all faith in humanity because of this.
What with? Look, man. Clouds aren't made of concrete. What's your problem?
No, because of Matthew Learns, not Anthony.
All right. I was about to say.
God, for a minute, I thought it was raining cats and dogs. Sorry.
No, I can empathize with Anthony's position because it was genius what he did. I hate to feel like I'm taking away from that. But
nah, you'll never take that away because the ballers are still reeling from that. So don't worry about that.
Hold on, are you giving him credit for being a shyster? Anthony, I am talking about now, because that's what he just did. Just offered up subterfuge.
I had another question too. Doesn't Anthony know that all concrete, noun, solid things don't go down depending on the medium too? Did we discuss that before?
No, it's not that. He took it away from that. Took it to whether or not it's a concrete noun. Typical lawyer.
I'm sorry. I caught the tail end of this whole thing. I'm sorry.
Anthony took it to a place and it was immediately identified as a red herring by John. And Anthony didn't like that one bit because that's exactly what he was doing. Well, is it a concrete noun? I'm going to say no because then we'll argue about this indefinitely. Anthony knows what he's doing.
But you gotta empathize with him though, because like the genius of that experiment, right? Recognize what's happening in nature, figuring out the cause. That's genius. And of course you would want to talk about it. I mean, because it's explaining something that we experience, you know.
But in the
So I
description,
know what he.
but in the description of what we experience, you're debunking the assertion that all things go down. I mean, all they've done is they've readdressed the scale with gravity, so that the all things or some things go down, some things remain neutral. Well, the some things go down. Actually, that's zero. In other words, when you're falling down, you're at zero, and when you're at rest, you're at one. Well, a repositioning of the scales so that you can have an always in effect downward bias, when all you need to do is again look out the window and look out the clouds and say, no, that's not the case. What's that then? Is that zero? Is that plus one? It's like, no, it's just not all things go down. End of argument.
All things made out of concrete go down. They fall at rest. So that's one thing. Anything made out of concrete, I would agree with that. That goes down, no matter what the medium is, unless it's another solid that interrupts it, like a trampoline or a ground or a mountain or whatever. But all things made of concrete do definitely go down. So that's what he probably got. He misconstrued the term concrete.
An anvil and liquid mercury.
Yep.
Ask
Only the
Wile E.
exceptions.
Coyote, right, Nathan?
That goes up.
Yeah, the anvil goes up in the mercury. Nuts, huh? But there we go. It's just down to the density of the medium versus the item in it. But yeah, not all things are going down. Anthony, in terms of his sledgehammer that he's got, his pneumatic sledgehammer for a Phillips head screw, you know, that's his claim to fame, isn't it? That's how he's been beating the ballers around for ages. Now, the fact that we can say, look, check it out, the bushes that you're scratching through actually have a little path around them. Here it is. He's going to go, nah, look how adept I am at fighting through these bushes. Well, okay, but personally, I could do without the cuts and scrapes. Well, I can just take this little detour here and point out that the phenomena doesn't happen as they describe it. So therefore, your starting process for your scientific methodology is to observe natural phenomena at step one. Some things go down, some things go up, some things remain neutral. Well, that's all I needed. The step one of the method. I didn't actually need the experiment, because as soon as I identified the phenomena, it disagreed with their assertion that the phenomena is all things go down.
And
Well, man,
Nathan, could you
you can't take it away from me. You did put on a nice white lab coat.
I didn't
Went
want to take it
all the
away.
way with
No, don't make fun of him like that. Don't take it, and don't take anything away from him. That was absolute genius. What he did was absolute genius. But
I agree.
It's unnecessary to the argument.
It would have been even better if Brian hadn't got there a couple of weeks prior. But there we go.
And Nathan, just for the listening audience, the normies, the listening audience, and I remember I used to say this argument a year ago. When y'all are saying this thing, not all things go down and some things go up. You got to explain to the listening audience that don't know the difference of exactly what you mean, the specifications, when it comes to a fly goes up, a bird goes up, a little gnat as tiny as this is, a flying ant goes up. Let them know that we're not talking about those things that propel themselves up. We're talking about natural phenomena, things that go up without.
That's where you do need. That's where you do. You're offering an.
I don't like to take credit. I don't like
Can
to
I
take
answer
credit
him?
for it. I want to.
Oh, God. Yeah, I need to answer you. No, you're then explaining something that isn't put down as a claim by you in the opposition or in the affirmative in the first instance. Their claim is all things go down. So you're saying, well, offer the explanation for how things appear in the natural world. But once we've tied down the phenomena of not all things go down, clouds being an example of stuff that's obviously not going down, then there's no further explanation. I'm not saying I want to deprive you of that, D. Rose, and I'm sure you already know the answer and are wanting it to be presented to the audience, and I get that. But I'm saying for the audience's benefit, you don't need it. That was the whole point of John's argument. He wasn't just trying to be argumentative with Sleeping Warrior or take anything away from him or be of detriment to his argument skills in this respect. That's not what he's trying to achieve. He's trying to say, why, if you can go from A to D, why go through B and C if you don't need to?
In this
I get
case,
it. I understand.
it's A to B. B's the easiest route. The fact that we don't see all those things.
Yeah, you're right. It's not even. It's C and D aren't needed. It's not even skipping out the process because they're not required. So it's from A, all things go down, to B, natural phenomena observed, not all things go down. What's the need for let's vary and manipulate why not all things go down, some things go up, some things remain neutral with an experiment? It's like you don't need the C or the D, you just need the B of not all things go down to undo the claim that they do. And then that's the end of the process.
Right. But now we're back to what they've done with, oh, we're actually spinning. Oh, that's not a natural phenomenon. I don't sense I'm spinning. So they bring it to that, right? Well, we live on a ball with a radius. Well, I've never seen curvature. What do you mean we live on a ball with a radius?
It's only
So
useful. You still need the argument, because if the next position they offer up is a positive claim that's unjustified with their assumption of the claim with the example thereafter, why aren't we flying off the surface of the ground then? Why aren't we just floating away? Okay, at that point, having a good understanding of how you, the item in this instance, are more dense than the medium of air, then you've got a one-up to overcome their argument and reassert the position that not all things go down. So you're going to ask me about me going down, or me, if you're arguing against some other non-related argument, going up, just for the sake of argument. But, well, then having a good understanding with scientific validity to back that would be where you'd need to go. So I'm not saying it's like with a lot of these arguments. You don't just disregard all of the preamble leading up to it, including this scientific validity offered in this instance by Sleeping Warrior. You don't ignore that. You'll need it. But at the point that you need to cut the argument off and win is where you take the win. Now, if they try and go, well, how do you explain it? At that point, you can say, explain what? Not all things go down. And you've got the strongest position to move forward on. You're not on the back foot trying to explain the validity of the experimental data rather than the phenomena debunking their original claim.
Well, we got water at rest finds its level. It's in the tool, a level. It establishes a vertical or horizontal, depending how you use your level. I mean, what more do you want? Now
Why
they're
doesn't that
telling
water
me,
just fly off into the air, given that all things are being held down with a downward force? The water would just fly off if we didn't have my presupposed spinning Earth with
Well,
a
that's-
downward force holding it all onto it.
right? So that's where we'll go next. So they got to invent a downward force, which isn't a force, a name that's had several descriptions, and now it's 4D space-time bending description, and it's not a force. So they keep changing it. They got to have something for this outrageous claim that I'm spinning at these high speeds, never feel it. I live on something curved, I never see it, and I'm being held down by a force that's not real. Wake up, everybody.
They're more preoccupied with what they can think about it than what it really is, right?
Since I'm just going to quote the Glober from last week, it's just flat. It's just flat.
Well, yeah.
Did you hear that? Were you here for that one?
No,
you weren't here,
no.
but you heard that
No,
one?
I saw the Nathan Short, though, that I heard it on.
The rubber ducky?
Yeah, the rubber ducky destroys them. It's like the artificial horizon, no dip, no refraction, same thing. It's, hey, you're at eye level is at sea level, and everything goes out the window about their claims all of a sudden.
Well, yeah.
Refurbished devices if
Yeah,
you rent
it's just
instead.
flat.
Music Magpie. Smart for you. Smart for the planet.
My question is, how is me falling into the water with the rubber ducky life preserver and a sextant rendering null the refraction correction and the refracted radius?
If you're at the water level, let's say you're literally bobbing your eyes in and out of the water, the horizon's right in front of you. There's nothing to correct for. Because depth accounts for height, is my understanding. If you have no height off the water, then there is no corrections.
No, it's a height of eye correction is what you're saying.
Because you're level with that horizon, you don't have to account for its drop. Depth accounts for height, because you're literally looking at the water level. You're bobbing your eyes in and out of the pool, essentially. So it's just flat. It is just flat.
Rubber ducky, you're the one.
You make
Hey,
bath
you did
time
what you-
lots of fun. Rubber ducky, I'm awfully fond of you.
My question is, how is me falling into the water with the rubber ducky life preserver and a sextant rendering null the refraction correction and the refracted radius.
As you go up, the horizon will eventually start to drop, and then you will have to make corrections. That is my understanding of it. So it goes away because at 0 there is no need for it.
Oh, so you're saying they just go away? He answered my question.
It is just flat.
That's
at that elevation. Yes.
Hold on. You said at that elevation it's just flat. Then that's what you said.
No, it is just flat. It is just flat. So nothing's flat just because you're at that
That's what
elevation.
you just said. Those were your. It's another one of those, isn't it? The host quotes back what you said verbatim.
It is just flat.
And you say no. That's what you said. At that point, it's just flat.
Sorry, it is just flat.
You don't have to talk through me when it gets to the devastating bit you said, and I repeat. You said at that point it is flat.
It is just flat at that stage.
Thank you. I'll be in the area all week.
Rubber ducky, you're the one.
You make bath
he did
time
mention-
lots of fun. Rubber ducky, I'm awfully fond of you.
Also,
Who was that guy?
The thing he wasn't getting was with the rubber ducky preserver life folks was, yeah, his eyes on. You're still using the sextant, and you're still bringing a luminary down, which could be thousands of miles away to 0.
Because you're literally looking at the water level, you're bobbing your eyes in and out of the pool, essentially. So it is just flat at that stage.
It's just flat.
Who was that guy? Who was that guy that I missed?
Yeah, from what day
I
was
don't even know.
from what day was that?
I don't know.
Wasn't that like Thursday or Friday? Maybe
Wednesday,
not Friday.
Thursday, something like that.
One of those.
Had to be in the after show.
It was
So when eye level meets sea level, it's
1905.
just flat.
It was show 1905 after show.
Yeah, he wouldn't come on the live show and do that for sure. That would
And then
that'd be
he hit,
American.
and then he hit the abort button. Get out! Get out! Any other Globers want to tell us how it's just flat?
But you
Are
know,
there,
when eye
Unorthodox?
level
I wanna
meets
read a
sea
quote
level,
to
it's
you.
just flat.
You there, Unorthodox? I want to read a quote to you. Clearly not. Which one's Unorthodox? I can't even remember which one he is.
Is he the one that says no one's claiming we see physical geometry?
That was quite a few of them.
Oh, Unorthodox has many of them. The biggest one that I can remember is the moment the Black Swan came out, he called it a straw man.
He also, if I'm remembering the right person, said that the diffraction limit is why the boat was disappearing. Is that the same guy?
Basically, yes.
It could be.
Right, well, I'm going to read out this quote anyway. So, this is a quote from Matthew Learns the other day. Quote, "You're right. Just the raw angle is a measurement. As soon as you put it in a triangle, then it becomes a calculation. And I was saying that kind of calculation is not possible on a globe." End quote.
Wow. So let's ignore the measurement that we took with the angle and just say the calculation is not a calculation. That's adorable.
No.
Yeah,
He
but
was
it's an
responding
idiotic
to-
red herring.
He was
It
responding
doesn't
to,
even make sense, does it? Read it again.
he's responding to
trouble
Eli.
following it.
And Eli's pointing out that the elevation angle measurement is a measurement. So his response was, "You're right. Just the raw angle is a measurement. As soon as you put it in a triangle, then it becomes a calculation. And as I was saying, that kind of calculation is not possible on a globe." End quote.
There you go. He just
Wow.
snatched his own wig off. It's over.
Yeah, he did. He
Good
did
quote, huh?
indeed.
There was loads of them. There's so much meat left on that bone.
So the 90 that's necessary in all cases of celestial navigation, just And what he just said there, my goodness, does he even know what he's saying?
No.
See, that's the thing. His red herring that he's trying to invoke is still using a flat Earth. So it's because it's talking about a triangle. We're talking about a single angle, right? But he's trying to take it to a triangle, which still requires a flat plane to measure the angle against. He's trying to assert that the ground that's flat is at a different angle from the original point in which he took the measurement. So he's trying to rotate the ground instead of rotate the celestial sphere.
Yeah, but you can't have diverging zeniths of this luminary and the observer and have it work.
But that's still irrelevant to the point, because he's still using a flat plane.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I'm sorry, maybe I'm stupid. Isn't that literally what they're all trying to do, is take that measurement of that angle and applying calculation to it for the globe?
No maybes about it, Chocolate.
Yeah. 10 grand if you can show how that flat Earth elevation angle measurement works on a flat Earth, mate.
But that's my point. Did he, with that statement, just debunk everything all his compadres are trying to do?
Nathan, I just put a few slides, but I just put the last slide. I think we have a problem here, Houston.
Well, Chocolate, you would formulate it if you were going to not use it or any substitution. The flat Earth you measure is changing angle from the flat Earth you measure, so that you're not forming a triangle.
But you just use the triangle to get that measurement that he said that's actually a measurement. But then when you put that measurement into a calculation, it doesn't work on the globe.
No, you used an angle. You used a flat Earth angle.
Yeah. Which according to his quote, he says is a measurement, right?
It's just a concession, really. But
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Angle.
Sorry.
Yeah, the angle he's trying to assert is not forming a triangle because it's not intersecting with the other flat plane that he's rotating. So the return of that is not a triangle.
Nathan, you see the pictures in Master D for the audience?
Yeah, I had it on screen while the discussion was going on, and the other one.
All right, so the first one, the sun, the GP, and the sailboat, and you see it's cutting through the spherical surface for a right angle. It says, figure 2, the angle measured with the sextant is in reality one corner of a right triangle formed by you, the celestial body, and its geographical position on Earth. And that would mean it's going through the surface of a curved dingleberry, which obviously would be a chord line. And so this isn't making any sense. If you go to the next slide, you see that famous one from the Celestial Navigation sextant site, where he does it now on the curved surface without the chord line or intersecting through a curve here. I mean, if someone's not confused right now why the dingleberry is necessary, because it needs to be a right angle triangle.
Well, not only that, on your diagram here, where the right angle is on this triangle, it's no longer on the ground, and the right angle here, where I'm pointing, is the GP, ground position. It just doesn't work. You can't have it. If it's dissecting the ground, then you haven't got an area of equal elevation. And the distance that you're going to travel is going to be increasing because you're covering a curved surface, which would increase the distance. So it just simply doesn't work in any way, even if you do draw a chord line, as is the absurdity of the last diagram. So on this diagram, you've got this, which is what tends to described as a chord. It's subtle, but you can see that it's cutting through the surface. Well, the ground position is 90 degrees to your position. Well, then you'd have ever-increasing amounts of curved surface between you and the GP. If it was the case, you're establishing a horizontal baseline for an area of equal elevation. That means there's no changes in the elevation of the ground in the circle that you've drawn. Well, in this, you've got all sorts of different elevations because it's a curved surface. In other words, it doesn't work.
The bubble sextant gives you a horizontal baseline artificially. It works. The center of the Earth, the equatorial plane, a disk, gives you a horizontal baseline, and it works. But when you're trying to use it on the surface of a globe, as seen in these two pictures, it cannot work. So a sextant can never work on a globe surface. End of story.
Unless you have the emergency go to the center of the Earth button.
Well, those are angles from hell.
Angles from hell.
It's become comedic at this point.
Become.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say though is that I don't even think they can enter into the celestial argument or celestial navigation argument because they still got to use a flat plane to get the initial angle before they can apply anything else. Their understanding of trigonometry or anything.
Well, you just gave the perfect summary to what those slides are showing, because it could only work one way, and they need to have the globe. It's got to be flat first.
I guess we can all go home now. Job well done.
It's just flat. I'm gonna sporadically just say that, just so you guys know.
Yeah. Any evidence there? Earth curve? It's just flat.
That if we did housekeeping, that's what I was gonna do this morning, but I got too late.
Nathan, if you put up this last picture I'm going to post today, black and white.
Okay.
All right. So let's start top down. Airplane, whatever elevation, altitude above the Earth. You can see it needs a horizontal and a vertical perpendicular relationship to get that angle. Okay. On the surface of Earth, you see the tangent plane necessary for the same thing to occur. Okay, not using the globe surface, no curved surface, can you get an elevation angle from? Go below the black marking where it's the minute mark, hour mark, and you could see where the vertex, right, where it says periscope film. The vertex is coming from the center, the equatorial plane, the same as all the other two above. They need 3 flat planes in this image to make the angles work. The globe is surplus to requirement. You said it. The dingleberry is only there for background reason. It's not necessary, and it can never work from a globe surface.
Shout out to Dingleberry Earth.
And with that,
Are
where'd
you
Neil go?
Nathan end the show, John?
No.
Where'd Neil go?
Neil's here.
What do you want?
What's that?
What do you want?
Oh, I can't find it. My hands are full with tools right now, so I can't get to it. Sorry. I don't know. You sent me a message about we're not getting it. Something about Feynman. It's all about volume.
That's there were 3 points. Or do you want to know what I said about Feynman? Is that what you were fishing for?
Yes. That's what I wanted to know. I can listen.
So at some point in the show, they were talking about Feynman and him making a statement about science, where I retorted, Richard Dick Feynman was a theoretical physicist. Therefore, any appeals to him regarding science or actual appeal to authority fallacies? Paula?
Yes.
Nathan, I'll just.
Go ahead.
What show was today, Nathan, since I've been gone?
1909.
All right. Thank you. I'll catch you
Now-
guys tomorrow. Good show today.
Thanks. See you
Later.
tomorrow.
426 mark tomorrow on that video,
Yeah, about
Nathan.
Something like that.
All right. See you guys.
Now, I hold the Baltards' feet to the fire because they worship Feynman. So I use him more or less as a hostile witness, and then I crush him. See that tactic?
Yes, that I know.
Oh, and then you guys are talking about electron orbitals. I don't know who you were listening to. I don't know who you were listening to. I can't remember, but whoever said that's a numpty dipshit. Walter Lewin, professor of physics, MIT. The discrete energy levels are frequently represented in high school and college textbooks as circular orbits. They compare the electrons around the nucleus with planets going around the sun in well-defined orbits. That is a misconception for sure. They are not orbits. End of citation.
Yeah, I think we all
by
agreed with that.
convention.
I thought we all agreed with that, though, on the show.
You thought we all agreed with that on the show. Who are we and what show?
Whoever was on the show, Flat Sword Show. I take it you're talking about Flat Sword Show, which I was
Yeah.
on, but I wasn't really on.
The one that you weren't really on. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we
Is
said
Neil
that was
getting in trouble?
bollocks. We didn't agree with that.
Is Neil getting told off?
No, there was just some clumsiness going on. It's not paying attention to the detail, things like that.
That would be correct.
Would it be somebody holding up or showing a picture of like valence electrons or the valences of the atom, and then
Yes.
claiming that they can debunk that, therefore atoms don't exist? Kind of clumsiness.
No. No. We all said it was, we didn't subscribe to that.
And the other one, I'm sorry. God.
I was going to say you don't ascribe to valency.
The fact that they're moving in orbit.
Well, that's fine, but valency is still a thing.
We don't disagree with that.
Is it a concrete noun, though? So the next point was, this is a subtle point. The reason why I say they violate all the gas laws is very simple. Because if you boil all the gas laws, no pun intended. If you boil all the gas laws down, all of them have this little letter in it. It's a V for volume. And you can't have a volume without what?
Container.
Correct. Thank you. I'll be in area all week.
Was somebody missing that in the gas law thing?
Yes and no. I think after I typed it, they clumsily ran into it. I can't recall. It was too long ago. Last night.
We were talking about when the gases get excited through temperature. And we said that you don't have any of this without containment.
Unless, of course, the gases get so excited that they rebel against gas laws and become the rebellious gas particles, and then come back to the magical. They come back to the magical spinning water ball.
No, what do they do when they rebel?
What do you mean? They. It's not what they do; it's what they don't do, which is not
Tell them what
expanding
they
the
do
volume.
Nathan, tell them what they do when gas particles.
They burn their bras in rebellion.
They eat a lot
and
of
light up
cakes, don't they?
cigarettes
Let's be
too.
honest. They eat a lot of cakes.
Well, how do they burn their bras? Do they like get close to the sun and then take a step back?
Nathan, my God, man, we're lost. What are you gonna do?
We need to find the height quick, sharp.
Somebody get the Oakley map.
Hold on, maybe somebody on board knows.
Quickly, somebody email at McKeegan.
I'm just waiting for one of them to take a cruise and the electronics to go out and they pull out a sextant and then just walk up and jerk it out of their hand. I know how that works. I'm going to do this. And he just throws it in the water and it's like, you can't measure angles on the surface of a sphere.
Oh, yes, you can. Sir Matthew said you can. And I can't get in contact, talking face to face, I mean, on the phone. They do not answer. So the amount of money these people are paying to go to college and you can't get anybody to answer a freaking phone call.
Neil, what month is it?
I think we're in
Don't tell
June.
him it's summer. Don't tell him it's summer and it's their off period.
We're in June. They're not there for the most part.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Try their
Summertime.
houses.
Yeah, but there's always somebody in the school.
No, there
Neil,
isn't.
if you want to contact the if you want to contact the professor,
Try again one more time.
if you want to contact the professor in the summer, all you have to do is send them an email and leave them your number, and they'll get to you back to you at their leisure.
Did that.
It's been at least a day,
leisure.
hasn't it, Neil? It's an outrage.
You answered me immediately. What the frick is wrong with them? You don't know who I am? I'm Neil Cosentino, member of Flat Earth Debate. People are changing the world. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, you should start with that.
Where's Brian at? I heard a little Tweety bird. They told me that Ruhif has been running around, and one of his claims was that
he was on 24/7 yesterday.
That's somebody sent me one of his claims, and he claimed that nautical miles equals a sphere.
Of course.
Yeah, that's just what I heard. I hadn't listened to it, so maybe I'll go back and listen to it.
Ruhif loves to make up how everything proves a sphere, but you can't really get him to explain it because when he tries, it becomes really convoluted and leads to a dead end. Every opportunity he says that everything is spherical based.
How's that geometric horizon working out for you, Ruby?
Yeah, his red herring to try to get an angle to a sphere, even though that's not the question, he's going to have a lot of trouble with that. Just trying to get an angle to one, let alone from it.
Angle, that's non sequitur. That how do you do that? How do you get angle to a sphere? What does that even mean?
Well, you can take the angle from somewhere exterior to the sphere and draw a line to the circumference of the sphere.
But drawing a line isn't an angle.
That's right, but all you have to do from that point is draw another line and get it to any random point.
That doesn't make any. That's stupid.
Just draw a line to the sphere you didn't prove yet. Yeah, that checks out.
And then draw another line and connect the two and say there's an angle. That's idiotic. That doesn't.
The
It's non
angles,
sequitur.
the angles in hell. What's wrong with you?
No. The angles to a tangent, Neil. We dealt with that like 2017, 2018 with Rumpus. Same thing. Matthew just assumes that we're stupid and that we're not going to realise. When he was trying to say, well, I'm being really specific about these geometric objects. Yeah, I knew exactly where he was going, and what you've just discussed was where he wanted to take it. I didn't allow it. And I hacked out his subterfuge from the video because we were quite specific, talking about his example he posted with a
What do you
ground
mean to a tangent?
My bad, Neil. You tell us.
No, I'm saying, what do you mean to a tangent? Because I thought they bring everything to the center of the earth, and that's where they start with their measurements.
Yeah, tangent's a straight line. So draw another line perpendicular to that tangent line that's meeting a sphere, and you've got a 90 on the tangent. That's where he was trying to take it.
Okay, just on that point. But it's not. I mean, if it's on a sphere, it's going to drop away.
No, the tangent wouldn't.
The tangent wouldn't. The sphere will. Yeah, Neil, that's their second argument when the first one doesn't work. But they don't mention Hell's angles. They don't mention. Now, when I say they, I'm saying the Baltards, the anti-flat earthers. They don't know that part. Follow?
Yeah, that's classic, that Hell's Angles. Good one, Nathan.
To me, the word tangent by itself is just begging a question, because a line that touches a sphere at one point, what sphere?
Yeah,
the hell sphere you're talking about?
That's what you're attempting to prove, knuckle draggers. That's a classic textbook begging the question fallacy, because you're assuming in your premises the conclusion that you're trying to reach.
That's why talking is ace. I never even put that together. That's correct.
Well, all of it is. But see, but you allude to some other proof, and then you're just claiming you're calculating with this one. So the actual proof is the shadows of on the moon, right? But you don't discuss that. You just leave that
actual proof.
Right, that's the actual proof. And then when that's addressed, then you allude to something else. So it's all kind of like a circular argument that's awful. Like just
that sounds like my homegirl Michelle Dollar. Like she said, proving the Earth. I mean, we got boats going over the curve, but other than that, we have very lovely proofs like the moon and the shadows on the moon. What the hell?
Oh, that's classic too.
We got to do one of her videos.
I'm sorry, I was going to transition over to another topic.
Go ahead.
No, I didn't want to ruin it. I'm not trying to bow my way in or anything.
Yeah, that's what I do.
All right, so I'll bow my way in. I'm thinking that if Adam and Brian don't come up with the proposed show for Ballbusters on Saturday, I'm thinking we're heading back to gravity. I've been hearing a lot about gravity this and gravity that and friggin' replacements for gravity. So I think that would be a good idea to go back to gravity. What do you think, Nathan?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ballbusters this Saturday will be on gravity.
Lovely.
What's gravity?
Yes, who's going to ask that? By the way, what is that?
Well, is gravity a concrete noun?
No.
Is concrete a concrete noun?
Yes.
And I thought that was very disrespectful to do that to Anthony, claiming that he thinks that the clouds is not a concrete noun because the clouds are not concrete or physical.
Who said that?
They were accusing Anthony of saying, because he was saying it's not a concrete noun. That's
That
not
wasn't
why he
what I
was
was-
saying that.
no, I was accusing him of a red herring because the claim is everything falls down, not concrete nouns fall down.
Hey, John, you're kind of a scotch refracted curvature. How did you apologize to Anthony again? I want to hear that again.
Well, I think he should, like, if we were in a different paradigm, I think he would be worthy of receiving the Nobel Prize for his experiment. And he probably would if, everybody didn't believe they lived on a sphere.
Nobel Prize. I don't know about that.
Come on now. He has a valid scientific hypothesis. He had an experiment that validated his alternative.
Yeah.
And that what the Nobel Prize is for?
No, yeah, but no. People have done many experiments, but there'd be like hundreds of thousands of people with Nobel Prizes then. Just
Hold on,
an experiment.
But the experiments that completely and totally change our perception of reality is the ones that people get Nobel Prizes for, right?
Yeah, fair enough. But we already had that
ref-
perception of reality.
Hey, can somebody
Refractive.
play
That's
something?
what
Hold on a
Hey,
second, Neil. We're in a conversation here.
It's about science. I'll wait.
Just wait.
But that's my point. Is his experiment the only way to look at it would change your perception of reality?
Didn't we already have that perception of reality?
I was kind of just gonna say that too. Like, but
No,
we already had that.
us. But that's us. The rest of the world ain't looking at it.
I don't know. A parent who throws their child into a pool with a life raft around them is pretty aware of it. I think.
Hey, Neil,
Okay,
correct
so
me
you're
if I'm
saying the
wrong.
average person,
Just basic reality. They might not have it in the context of gravity and relative density, but they know you put a life raft around a kid, life raft's gonna float, right? Keeping the kid from drowning.
Or just throw a rubber ducky life preserver in there by itself.
Or that.
Let me ask you a question. Is the beginning of the scientific method breaking things?
Huh?
If somebody would play what I posted, I got it timestamped and everything, and it's maybe 20 seconds. That's it.
Where'd you post it?
In Master B.
Oh, God.
You just got to scroll up a little bit. You'll see Dell's channel, and it's just a guy that called into him explaining what the scientific method is.
Scroll up a little bit. This is a whole lot. I can't even find you.
It's right before 10 spaghettification one.
That's scroll up a little bit. I'm halfway up the page and still not there.
While you're doing that, hey Neil, I think you was asking.
I'll repost it.
Hey Neil, I think the apology you was speaking about that refractive need to reiterate was when he said something about, "Hey Anthony, I want to apologize for interrupting you while you were trying to prove your red herring claim."
Yes. Yes,
Yep.
good, John.
What did you say?
I did interrupt him while he was trying to red herring away from the point.
What did he say? Neil, what did Neil just say? What did you say? Scutch?
Yeah, he's the scutch, man.
What the hell is a scutch?
It's like a ball breaker. You know, somebody that rubs it in. Wide ass.
Spell it.
Okay. How do you spell scutch? SCOOTH? Scutch?
I don't think it's
Could be
a word.
SK, it's slang.
I don't think you need to spell it. I don't think it's a word. It's good.
Well, that's what we use in Brooklyn. We call it a real freaking scutch.
That's what you call it. That's what you call it, refractive, right? That's what
Sounds
you call it,
Yiddish.
refractive.
Yeah, it's sort of like a Mameluke. Mameluke is just an idiot, moron. A scutch is somebody that, breaks balls, getting on your nerves, and he continues to get on your nerves. My friend Little Joey was a big scutch.
Okay, so scutch, SCOOCH. Is that what you're saying, scutch?
That's what I would say. It could be SK.
It means to crouch or squat or move in or pass through a restricted space.
Well, we will scooch over these terrible examples and say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams. Hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!